Where are the low-value men?
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site. You can believe that. You can believe that. You can believe that.
Contracted COVID, but says with a mixture of medicines, including the controversial horse dewormer that has poisoned hundreds of people nationwide, he's now recovered.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
From the headlines to the whisper start. Low value mail. Low value mail at 9 o'clock. We're truth fiction. Take a walk.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon? You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Our stories are.
Hoo boy, everybody. What is happening on this lovely Monday, February 10th, 2025, the year of our Lord? Welcome back to an all-new episode of Low Value Mail. It's episode number 137. And joining me on this fine evening in the second hour, we have none other than Richard Grove. If you don't know who Richard Grove is, he's a forensic historian, independent media producer, host of Grand Theft World podcast, founder of TragedyandHope.com and AUTONOMY University of Reason. And he's going to be joining us. I know he's been requested a few times, actually. And he'll be joining us at 10 p.m. And, of course, the phone lines will be open for you guys to ask him questions. The phone lines will also be open in a little bit for you to chime in. Because, of course, this is the greatest call-in show on the internet. Shout out to everybody watching over on YouTube. Shout out to everybody watching over on Rumble and X. I don't know if people watch this on X. I can't possibly monitor 3 different things at once. So I don't know if people watch this on X. I had an extra monitor that I had been using, and then it just decided to stop working. Cheap Chinese garbage. This is why these tariffs are coming. We're going to get made in America monitors that'll last more than fucking 3 years. But that's where we're at. Before we get started, this is only on YouTube, but if you do it on Rumble, I'll count them or whatever. But we have a super chat goal. If we hit the super chat goal, which we have, I think, the past 2 weeks, we'll be doing an extra 30 minutes of just straight open lines right into my veins. I'll also read all your super chats. Plus, one of you, super chatters, will win a 6-month Patreon.com membership. 6-month low value mail. Patreon.com membership. If you're wondering what you get with that, you get an extra episode, audio only episode a week, which this past, or I guess this would be last week's now. A lot of hot comedy gossip for those of you who listened. I will not divulge any other information. You'll have to sign up to listen. But it was hot goss. I'm not a big gossip guy, to be honest, but I was a real bitch. If you catch my drift. Those of you who listen know. I'm sure some of you are just putting it in the chat. But if you want to listen to that, you can check it out. Patreon.com/lowvaluemail, MAIL. Also, we're 183 patrons away. Once I hit 500 patrons, I'm going to be giving away 500 U.S. cold, hard greenbacks to one of you. So, yeah, even if you win a free membership, you'll be eligible. So look at that. Hot damn. How does everything sound? Does it sound okay? Does it sound good? I just want to make sure. I was having actually all sorts of audio issues before this, but I think we're good. I think we're out of the woods here. So let's get started. I've spoken about the trade war and the tariffs the last 2 weeks. I'm going to be as brief as possible about this. I don't want this just to be Danny's tariff trade war hour every week. It can get boring. I understand. Also, not to toot my own horn, but I've been correct about pretty much everything I've said these last 2 weeks. I was right when I said that the tariffs were coming regardless, and I said they were coming to every country that has a trade surplus. I guess I was a little wrong about that. I actually haven't checked this, but Trump started today. He announced a few hours ago, 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum. Every country in the fucking world is getting those. Now, I don't know, are there any countries that produce steel and aluminum and export them to America that run a trade deficit? Probably not, to be honest. There may be one on there. So I actually probably am right about that. I was right about Trump not joking about taking over Canada. I have been saying this since early December, since the first time he even made mention of this, when literally every journalist on earth was just like, no, it's just Trump. He's just kidding around. He's just having a goof. I said immediately, I go, he is not joking about this. Again, vindicated. And I want to say, I do have a little apology to everybody who watches or listens to this show. I feel like I have failed. I failed the low value ethos of this show. Because instead of just discussing news that's been going on in the world, I've actually been doing real journalism. I think that what I've been doing actually counts as real journalism. And for that, I'm sorry. I'll say this. I hesitate to ever use the J word to refer to myself. That ugly, ugly J word. You guys know which one I mean. If you're an American, fun times. You are about to participate in the greatest economic experiment potentially the world has ever known. I'm not an economic historian. I'm not. But it seems like if this isn't the greatest economic experiment, it's up there. It's up there. But I wanted to address this. I wasn't even going to talk about this, but I received a message from a now former, low-value male patron today, which I take umbrage with. A lot of umbrage. I don't know if I've ever had this much umbrage, but I'm taking a lot of umbrage with it. So this was from, I don't know his name. I'm not going to say his name. That's not necessary. But if you're in the low-value male Patreon, you probably, in the little group chat thingy that they have, you probably saw this. And if you want to sign up, it's a fun time. I'm in there. We just chat about stuff. I'm in there pretty much every day. But so he says, I'm bummed about the huge Canadian derision in the latest episodes. As a Canadian listener, it sure turns me off. Just unalloyed joy at the prospect of bad things. And he, in brackets, he says, tariffs are one thing, but the boys have basically begun giggling themselves silly at the idea of Canada being taken over or economically destroyed, end bracket, happening to their home country. He's referencing the show and the boys cast, presumably where family still lives. Correct. I do not know. I'm not loving it. Don't let Rogan-level understanding of Canada and dislike of Trudeau blind you to the fact that it's a functioning, desirable country with lots of people who are proud to be there. So, I do want to clear this up. Obviously, the Boys Cast is a comedy podcast. This one is not a comedy podcast. Sometimes we crack some jokes, but this is not a comedy podcast. But I'm not really sure what this guy is talking about, to be honest. Because, in my opinion, Canada is in a lot of trouble. It doesn't bring me joy to say that. He says we have been unalloyed joy. It's been neither unalloyed nor joy. I don't take any joy at the prospect. Again, my family lives in Canada. All my family lives in Canada. All my friends live in Canada. I have friends who are directly impacted by all this shit. And I don't take any joy in this. Like, it doesn't, I'm not like, I'm not fucking rooting on this to happen by any stretch of the imagination. Obviously, I feel like I'm in somewhat of a position to talk about it, being Canadian and living in America. But again, majority of my friends and family still live there. And once Dr. Phil and Tom Homan inevitably deport me back there, it's where I'm going to go, right? It's where I'm going to have to live. Especially when Dr. Phil shows up. If I see Dr. Phil in the street, if I'm walking down and I just see Dr. Phil walking my way, I go, it's over. They got me. I'm getting deported. What a bummer. And look, the leadership in Canada right now are some of the most inept, unprepared people to deal with what is coming. You got Doug Ford, who is, I don't know if you guys like Doug Ford. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a moron, okay? He fancies himself a bit of like a little mini Trump. The guy's a moron, okay? I have known about Doug Ford. He's been on my radar for probably 15 years, okay? This is not a guy whose intellect has ever blown anyone away, okay? He's certainly a populist, a man of the people. I respect that. But this is way out of his wheelhouse. Same with Justin Trudeau. The parliament in Canada is not even sitting right now. They're all on fucking vacation so that Trudeau and the Liberals can cling to power because they just refuse to call an election. So I just want to make that clear. I'm not joyful about any of this happening. The reason I've been talking about that paper, the User's Guide to Restructuring the Global Order, or whatever it was called, I still can't even remember what it's called, but for the past 2 weeks, my hope is that someone in the government will read it so they can at least be better prepared about what they're dealing with. Because like I've said many times, they're all like, oh, it's the fentanyl issue when we fix that. And you go, it's not what that is. He's just using it as a pretext, as a, national crisis, essentially, so that he can use his emergency powers to slap all these tariffs on everybody. But it's not what's going on. And I watch Canadian news all the time right now, and they don't bring it up. I'm like, you guys don't know why am I the one doing journalism? I'm a fucking dumbass comedian. Makes zero sense. And I honestly, again, I don't even agree with Trump on what he's doing with the whole Canada thing, but that doesn't matter. Because me not agreeing with it, or anybody not agreeing with it, it's not going to stop it from happening. He's still doing this. So at least if you knew his game plan, you could maybe deal with it a little better. They have no fucking clue. They're a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off up there. Fucking turkeys. That's what we call them up in Canada. It's fucking Thanksgiving, and they're all just a bunch of turkeys. Canadian Thanksgiving. So anyways, a lot of umbrage on my part, because I was just like, none of us take any joy in this. We're just explaining what's going on from our unique Canadian perspective. All right, USA. It's actually USAID. It seems like everybody wants to call it USA. That's whoever came up with that. Clever. Very, very clever. Very clever. Because it's all about international development, right? We go, it's international development. But you go, no, it's aid. Who doesn't like US aid? We're just aiding stuff. We're helping people. And now look, everybody knows that the government just wastes your money. They waste it. They are just the absolute worst stewards of your hard-earned tax dollars, which they take half your money. Depends where you live. In New York City, where I live, they take half of my money. Patreon.com/lowvaluemail. And up until now, it was just one of those things that we all knew, and we just accepted it. We go, yeah, government just spends crazy money on crazy shit. And you go, what is that stuff they're spending money on? You go, I don't know. Aid? Well, that sounds all right. It's all good stuff, right? It's like that meme for that movie with Natalie Portman and the blonde guy. His name escapes me. I think he's Canadian, though. Anakin Skywalker. Right? Because it's all good stuff, right? Right? But the extent to which this is going on is quite unbelievable. And we're going to talk to our guest, actually, Richard, because I think he's been covering this USAID stuff. I only have so much time in the day to read shit, and I still have to do comedy and create content. So I'm no Mike Benz, I'll say that. And I keep messaging him. He's ghosting me. I mean, understandably. He's like, do you want to go on Rogan and Tucker Carlson, or do you want to go on Low Value Mail? Is it my fault I called it that? Probably. But he did message me back one time, and he said he would come on. But then he went on Rogan, and I guess that was the end of that. And look, I understand this is the richest country in the world. Richest country ever, I believe. And, sharing some money to help some other countries from a pure charity standpoint. Get a little goodwill. That's okay. I'm not against that. Tithings and whatnot. You don't want to be a miser. You don't want to be the J word. That's, in this case, not journalists. But, there's nothing wrong with altruism. But some of this shit is ridiculous. So here's just a list. And I'm sure some of you have seen this shit. But $7.9 million. And now, I understand these are, in the grand scheme of things, tiny sums of money to the United States. Biggest GDP on planet Earth. I believe it's like 30 trillion, something like that. It's up there. So these are small sums of money in relation. But just what are they doing? $7.9 million to teach Sri Lankan journalists, J-words, how to avoid binary gendered language. Why do they give a shit about that? I guess this whole thing is like we're trying to just remake the world in our image. Obviously, this is like a left-wing, very left-wing image. $20 million for a new Sesame Street show in Iraq. That one, we did kind of invade them under false pretenses and kind of fuck that place up, right? It's like the whole weapons of mass destruction thing. Look, I've worked in television. I've worked in movies. I can tell you that for $20 million, unless they're getting 1,000 episodes of that show, something untoward is going on here. There's some scamming going on, big time, because it's just puppets and some kids. Kids barely cost any, like an Iraqi kid. What's an Iraqi kid's day rate for acting? $5? $20? Like, I understand, the crews are expensive, cameras are expensive, but $20 million. Obscene. Like, you can make a sick movie right now for, assuming that you don't have crazy expenses in terms of casting, because you're like getting some famous actor or whatever, and they cost a lot of money. But just the actual raw production costs, you can make like a really nice movie for a couple $1 million. Easy. That's 100-minute movie. This doesn't really check out. Over $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. Who gives a shit? What, this is our business? Is if there's disinformation in Kazakhstan? $1.5 million for art for inclusion of people with disabilities. All right. I guess that one's fine. I don't know. $2 million for sex changes in LGBT activism in Guatemala. Yeah, they don't want that. I don't think Guatemalans are really caring that much about this stuff. $6 million to transform digital spaces to reflect feminist democratic principles. Pass. It's a hard pass for me. And it's very vague. What does that even mean? How do you transform a digital space? Is that like, remember when Instagram in your group chats, I don't know if you ever did this, but Instagram in the group chats, they had themes, and then they had all these gay themes. So we would always have like our group chats would just be like the transgender theme. And then Trump got elected and they removed that. $2.1 million to help the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, value the diversity of Libyan society. Why don't they value the diversity of Libyan society with their own fucking money? Although, again, we did do some shit in Libya. Hillary Clinton. A lot of this is like, seems like they're like, oh, we're kind of guilty about all that stuff we did. We did some bad shit, so let's funnel $2.1 million to the BBC. Because if we did it, then it would be kind of like an implicit understanding that, an admission. $10 million worth of USAID funded meals, which then went to an Al-Qaeda linked terrorist group. You got to keep Al-Qaeda fed, all right? They're not going to be effective if they're hungry. That's what they say about armies, right? It's all about you got to feed them. If it's the only way to keep up morale is if you feed them. So that one I like. You gotta keep up Al Qaeda morale. If it costs $10 million, it costs $10 million. I mean, didn't we create Al Qaeda? Got to feed them. $25 million for Deloitte to promote green transportation in the country of Georgia. You know how much fucking money Deloitte has? What does Deloitte need $25 million to then go to the country of Georgia in the middle or in Eastern Europe or whatever to promote green transportation? Why can't these countries figure out any of this shit themselves? This reminds me a lot of the stuff of like the low kind of expectations, racism kind of stuff where, it's like the black people can't get ID. This reminds me a lot of that. Like the thing with Kazakhstan. Have you ever seen Kazakhstan's capital city? It's actually pretty nice. It's the opposite of what you think it is. You look at it and you go, oh, surprising. Borat misled me. That's maybe what you know what? Now I'm realizing the $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan, that's just to undo everything Borat did. Because we all just think of like these little towns with everybody's just fucking their sister and chickens are running around because of Borat. So then now the U.S. is like, our bad. Go make your own movie about America's a shithole. I don't know. $6 million for tourism in Egypt. The whole industry in Egypt's tourism. What do they need $6 million for? That was just a trip. They just went on a nice trip and they go, it's a $6 million for tourism. And they just went on a $6 million trip. $2.5 million to promote inclusion in Vietnam. $16.8 million for a separate inclusion group in Vietnam. So, they're really throwing some inclusion money over to Vietnam. $5 million to EcoHealth Alliance, one of the key NGOs funding bat virus research at the Wuhan lab. Whoops. Oopsie. $20 million for a group related to a key player in the Russiagate impeachment hoax. I mean, had it worked, that would have been money well spent. Money well spent. And there's so many of these. $1.3 million to Arab and Jewish photographers. $1.5 million to promote LGBT advocacy in Jamaica. Let me tell you, the jury's out on gay people in Jamaica. They don't like them, okay? You need to drop a fucking glitter bomb on that country if you want them to accept gay people, because that is coded in their Jamaican DNA. No bati shit, okay? That is good luck. 1.5 million, 1.5 billion wouldn't even make a dent in their homophobia. Zero chance. There's so many of these. There's just so many. 2.3 million for artisanal and small scale gold mining in the Amazon. What? Gold is gold. Who gives a shit about artisanal? I want it from some kid in Africa who lost his goddamn arm. 3.9 million for LGBT causes in the Western Balkans. 5.5 million for LGBT activism in Uganda. Again, no, that is just, you're throwing good money after bad right here, as they say. Ugandans, same as the Jamaicans. It's not happening. It just, like, sometimes you just got to be like, you know what? There's no amount of money that can solve this problem. They just have to, we can poison their minds with Western culture to maybe have them come around to this, but you're not just throwing money at this problem. This is a problem that is just bigger than money. Here's another one. 6.3 million for men who have sex with men in South Africa. How does that work? They just give you money because you had sex with a man? How much do they give you? Do they give you money every time you have sex with a man? That seems like a perverse incentive system. And there's so many more. We have 150 billion whole of agency USAID's climate strategy approach to building equitable world with net zero greenhouse gas emissions. 1.5 million for advancing DEI in Serbia's workplaces. What the fuck does America give a shit about Serbia's workplaces? Also, I don't know a lot about Serbia. Pretty sure not particularly diverse place. I think it's just like white people and then different types of white people. And maybe they have issues with each other, but that's not, when we talk about DEI, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about including different types of swarthy white people. We don't give a shit about that. And then 2 million for sex changes in Guatemala. And then there was, and I'm going to open the phone lines very shortly. There was HIV funding stuff for Africa is wild too. $400 million a year they send to Africa because I guess HIV is just still such an issue there. And like, look, this isn't the 80s. Like, I get in the 80s, America being like, you know what? If they have a crazy HIV outbreak, AIDS outbreak in Africa, and then those people could come to America and they can all sodomize each other, and then it could really spread out of control, and we don't know how to handle this. Right? It's just killing people. It's just Philadelphia. Shout out to the Eagles. I could understand in the past, but at what point do you just tell a country, like, look, you guys are on your own with this, okay? Clearly there's no sum of money. I know that, like, you know, they're throwing all this money and it's making some marginal improvement, and obviously these are human beings. How hard is it to not get HIV at this point in the game? Like, most of these countries in Africa, you're not even allowed to be openly gay. I mean, I guess they're getting it heterosexually. I heard something where women put sand in their vaginas to dry it out. Like, why? I don't get it. I mean, you got to respect everybody's culture. All cultures are just as good as every other culture. We're not that type of podcast over here where we're criticizing other people's cultures. It kind of reminds me how parents, you know, will constantly give, like, they'll have like a drug addicted child, and then they give the child money because, like, the child threatens them, and then all that does is just keep them on drugs and doesn't really help anything. This kind of reminds me of that. Sometimes the best option is you just cut them off and just let them figure out this shit on their own. Maybe you could airdrop condoms and some pamphlets. Have you tried that? I know condoms suck. Nobody likes using them. But if everybody you know starts dying of HIV, maybe you'll come around to that. And if you don't, at what point are you like, all right, well, I guess it's natural selection. I don't know. Like, is this just like slavery reparations still? Is this just like slavery guilt? Is this what it is? We feel bad for slavery, so we'll just help you with your HIV? Like, if they don't care, like, get them fucking... Half the people in Africa are online. It's surprising. You think it would be more, but half the people are online. 1 out of every other person has a cell phone. Just hop on Grok. Be like, how do I not get HIV? It's really easy. It's so easy to not get HIV, especially if you're not gay. If you're not gay and you're getting HIV, that's crazy. They should have 2 people a year who are not gay who get HIV. And then the whole time we're like, probably gay though. All right, phone lines are open, everybody. I'm done spewing my hate speech. Please like and subscribe before I get to any calls. Like and subscribe to the channel. If you're an audio listener, make sure to follow this podcast, leave a review, support the show. I can't do the show without you guys. It really does help. So support the show. I got to buy a new monitor now. It's a whole nightmare. And you'll get access to the Patreon audio every week. Plus, you might win some money. It's what other podcast gives away money? Sure, there's no J-words giving away their money. I'm the only one. Also, we got a new episode of The Bathhouse tomorrow night, 9 p.m. If you never caught an episode, it's the funniest call-in show on the internet. And then also catch me live. I got some live dates. If you want to see me do stand-up, I'll be for the Canadians, if that country still exists. Maybe it's that kind of joke that he's talking about. But come on, it's a joke. Vancouver, Edmonton in April and May, DannyComedy.com. I'm going to read a couple super chats here while we wait for the calls to pour in. They're going to pour in. And we're going to, obviously, at the break, at 10 o'clock, we'll be back. Logan Sorter says, working late tonight, delivering your wife's Amazon boxes. Like the stream, join the Patreon. Patreon.com/lowvaluemail. Enjoy the show, everybody. Shout out Logan. He's a real one. And Sean from Pittsburgh, $4.20. No message, just $4.20. I appreciate you for that, Sean. From the P-Burg. Good shit, man. All right. Let's take a call here. Let's see who we got. Hello. You're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
This is Sean. I actually had a Doug Ford story if you want to hear it.
Yes, let's hear it.
So my brother-in-law's dad grew up on Doug and Rob Street. R.I.P. to Rob, who was
Yeah,
obviously the better brother, but whatever.
Yeah, did he
We
buy
need Rob,
did he buy
honestly.
hash from them?
Rob could deal with this shit.
No, he can't.
What?
No, he can't. They're like dumb jocks. Like they're just like
But I'm
dumb
just saying,
jocks.
Rob is clearly the better brother. Anyway, so here's what happened. So my brother-in-law's dad, he was at a Jays game. He caught a legit foul ball. And then when they were going home, like on their street, they were just throwing it around, and the ball went over their head, landed in front of Rob's house. Dougie, ran outside, grabbed the ball, ran inside, locked the door.
Really?
True story.
What a piece of shit.
Anyway,
I mean, they
last
were known
week I
to be
called
these big
Suspect.
hash dealers in the Etobicoke back in the 70s.
Yeah, they're just scumbags. And of
Yeah.
course, they're in charge, but whatever. Last week I was calling whining about USA Aid. My friend was like getting his funding cut.
Right. What happened
I
with
just
that?
had an update. They got their funding back because they actually weren't like, okay, legitimately, yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff, a lot of waste. They were actually like feeding people and doing like non-gay education stuff. That was actually helpful. So they actually got their money back. So
There you go.
I'm actually not so mad anymore.
Yeah, and
So
I mean,
fair
I
enough. Yeah, they actually got their shit back.
I feel like that's kind of what I said last week. Was I'm like they're just kind of pausing to see where this money's going, and people will get their money if they're deserving of it. But there's so much. I mean, again, the problem is like I know these seem like these huge sums of money, but you're like it doesn't even make a dent. Like you get rid of 400 things that cost. I mean, I guess if you get rid of 400 things that cost $2 million a piece, that's $800 million. But I mean, they pay like I don't know what the daily interest payment is in the United States on the debt, but it's something crazy.
It prevents like the migration that they don't really want happening, though. So anyway, so it's kind of a net positive.
Migration
anyway,
to
that they got their money back.
Migration to where?
Well, he's working kind of not in Myanmar, but like nearby in Southeast Asia. So they were kind of trying to stabilize that country, and yeah, it's a net positive that country doesn't
but
collapse,
it's like
right?
good luck to stabilize Myanmar. Like good fucking luck.
For real.
Like you think you're gonna send them $2 million a year to like all you can do is just put a little Band-Aid on it. Make sure people are
damage
fed.
control basically, and anyway, so they got their money back. But anyway,
Yeah.
I have like a theory about why Canadians are so kind of gassed up about what's going on, why they're so mad, why
They're
they
mad. They're
unallayed.
booing the anthems.
Interesting word. That interesting word that guy used, unallayed. I wouldn't use that in normal conversation. but
Unalloyed.
big up to him.
Unalloyed.
Unalloyed. Oh, so he used the wrong word.
Yeah.
So okay, whatever. So he used the dumb word. Okay. Anyway, so here's my theory. Is like what you've been to Canada recently. So for the non-Canadians listening, in the last 10 years, basically Indians have taken over Canada.
Yeah.
Massively, like in all sectors.
Where do you
It's
live?
Totally changed. I'm from Toronto.
Toronto.
So,
Okay.
I'm from ground zero in terms of like you know.
Yeah, I've heard. I haven't
you
really
can't go-
seen it, but I've heard.
It's like everywhere. They've taken all the jobs, and you know how they're like really nepotistic. Like once an Indian gets in charge of HR, they will only hire other Indians, and it's just been crazy. And
Yeah.
Canadians have just been drilled in their head. You can't be racist. You have to be good. And they're seeing all this shit, and it's like it's fucking with their head because they don't like what they're seeing, but they can't say anything because they've done all this privilege and whiteness. By the way, Elon says you're white now, so
I heard
Jews are
that.
white now, so you're also
Yeah.
white now. Anyway.
I did hear
like
that.
when
but-
Trump kind of came in on this stuff, it was like a vent. Like all these Canadians could be like, okay, now I can express all this anger and rage I've had building up for 10 years because Trump's a fair target. So that's why they're extra gassed up, is because they didn't have any outlet about the Indian stuff, and now they do. So now they can just let all that steam out. So that's my theory.
That's interesting. And I mean, it is a fair thing because, as stifled as people might feel like in America, it was so much worse in Canada. Like you
I was
literally...
happy them kicking off about the H-1B stuff because it's like, yeah, if you want to see like what Vivek Ramaswamy and his mom or whatever want to do to their country, like look to Canada, and they totally fucked up.
I don't know.
Like my nephews can't get a job.
Right.
Like there's no work.
It's funny, too, because I was talking to a comedian who's from Canada, actually, about all this stuff that's going on. And he was very much like, I was saying, on Twitter, how like Canadians actually, there are some Canadians who are welcome to the idea of becoming America. And he's like, yeah, he did the whole thing, like Twitter's not real life kind of thing, which people like to say dismissively. They're like, Twitter's not real life. Like Twitter, the whole issue with all the the PR people coming into Canada, that started on Twitter, and that literally made its way all the way to the government to the point where they actually like stopped doing it. And it started like, had it just been, you just had your mainstream medias, they would have never changed it ever. Like,
I think Twitter is real life, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
people just feel they have the ability to be honest, and so I think it really is.
Yeah.
And so I was actually really happy to see Americans like rejecting what they've done to Canada and not wanting that there, because they are just going to fuck up things up. There's a reason why Tesla's shit and SpaceX is good. It's because you can't get H-1Bs at SpaceX. Anyway,
I
I'm
didn't
sure
know
you
that.
have other comments. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, cool, man. Sounds good.
All right. Take care. Good show.
Later. All right, let's take another call here. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, my name is Donish.
Hey, what's up, Donish? How's it going, man?
Hey, pretty good, thanks. I think you're very reasonable. Your positions are very sensible. Just only one time I had a disagreement with you around October 7th. So
sure.
Let's hear it. There. But you just said that like, oh, Israel is sovereign and they have a right to do whatever they want with their borders. Which I get the general nation state; they have a right to exist. But you've later on said that children have died and you were acknowledging tragedy. So I was like, all right, he's a sensible dude. But as far as like right now, not to switch the topic, but like you and Glenn Greenwald made the point, not that y'all are high IQ Trump supporters, MAGA supporters, but they're also making the point that this Gaza thing is just like a negotiating tool, which I heard that I was like, oh, I kind of got some ease. But then now I'm thinking, and I think I heard that he doubled down on it.
Yeah, he said it today.
Like,
he said it today again. But sorry, what
are your thoughts that it'll be?
It'll
actually happen, or
here's one of the things. This one I actually don't like. I was very confident with the Canada thing where I go, no, he is serious about this. This one, I don't know exactly what he's going for here. I don't know if he's trying to just be like, look, you guys, he's going to force Israel and Palestinians to negotiate something because the alternative is just like, he's like, we're going to take it. It doesn't make sense. Like, there's no appetite for all the shit he's doing. This is maybe the least appetite out of, maybe the evangelicals are down with it, but like nobody wants to send troops into Gaza. Like not zero people, but not a lot of people want to do that. It makes no sense to go redevelop Gaza. It doesn't make sense to make Gaza like an American property. Like, I don't even understand how that works. Like, Canada makes sense because you think about it geographically and you go, it's connected. It's like kind of landlocked, at least, other than the Arctic. There's resources. I'm like, Gaza's 360 square kilometers, I believe, or something like that. It's small. Like, it's fucking tiny little piece of land. You're like, yeah, it's on the water, but so is Tel Aviv. I don't know. There's lots of places on the water. Like, that one I don't really know about. Like, I don't know what he's up to. Part of me thinks he's just trying to take everybody's eye off other shit he's doing and focus on that. And he's just like, he just knows if I say something just absolutely crazy, then that's what the news will have to talk about for as long as I keep saying it. And at any point he could just be like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Cause I did. And I said it, I've been saying it with the deportations. Like, the deportations is, in my opinion, his biggest risk to midterms and like just kind of losing like support among kind of middle ground people, because they are already like, tearing up families and deporting people who are not criminals. And I know lots of people are like, if you're here illegally, then you're a criminal. I understand that, but I'm just saying, like, when you start seeing that on TV and CNN and MSNBC and all that shit, that's what they run with constantly, is just these sob stories. You're going to lose a lot of people and you're going to lose a lot of support. So maybe he just was thinking, hey, the deportation's the biggest story, which it was until he just decided Gaza's the biggest story now. So I really don't know. I mean, today he said that if they don't release all the hostages because the Hamas basically said that they're going to pause releasing the hostages. And then he said if they're not all out by noon on Saturday, he's like, all hell will break loose. What that means, I don't know, because he speaks kind of vaguely, which probably by design. He just kind of, so I the Gaza thing, I don't know about, because that makes no sense to me. I don't see why America would want that. How do you even manage that from here? I don't know. Like, there's like, that's like old school colonial shit where you have some territory that's 5,000 miles away across an ocean. that you're managing, and that's, as far as I understand, never worked out. Not long term, anyway.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting things you said. Like you said, the kids in the cages, if that actually gets shown, that'll like do something. And then I heard today that 13% or something around there of Americans support the Gaza thing, and 40%, close to 38% are against 36%, and then 40 are like in between. So I just, you would think that he's taking a big risk, but as you mentioned, it could be.
I mean, he's governing like he has 2 years. He's literally, the way the speed at which he's moving and all the shit he's doing is he's acting like he has 2 years where he can do whatever the fuck he want, and he's acting accordingly. Like, he's not acting like he has 4 years. He's very much acting like he has 2 years, and he's just doing everything. I mean, he's got rid of plastic or paper straws. He's getting rid of the penny. Like, he's doing all sorts, which I actually am in favor of, the penny thing. But yeah, he's doing crazy shit. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the Gaza thing. If you have any thoughts on what he's doing, I have.
Can I make a general point? I know maybe I'm over time.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I really find it interesting with that dynamic, how you're open to people calling in with all kinds of theories, and you said that you find conspiracy theories fascinating.
I do.
But I think I heard you say that you don't necessarily, obviously, don't subscribe to all of them, but
no,
that I heard that maybe you're not even not even not that it's a medium conspiracy theorist, but I find that very interesting. And
I mean, I'm open to them. My mind is open to being changed. There's lots not just, but flat Earth, I don't believe. I don't think anybody could ever convince me on flat Earth. I just don't. That's just one I don't think I could ever come around to. But there are lots where I'm like, someone says something, I go, yeah, that seems feasible. And everything's probabilities, right? Like, it's the probability with which I believe it. There's some that are 0%. There's some that are 100%. You might get me 50%. I don't know. But I am interested very much in the things people believe. Because some people are like, they believe some, like flat Earth. They're like, this is 100%. And I'm like, it's interesting that you have that certainty about these kinds of things.
Yeah, the social psychology behind it is fascinating. I find that people come to their beliefs.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I just became
appreciate
a Patreon member, and I'll stick with it. I appreciate you, Dan.
Hell yeah, dog.
It's an honor.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Donish, everybody. Let's take some more calls here. And again, we got Richard Grove coming up, top of the hour. Make sure you stick around for that. And we have here, here we go. Yani, are you there?
Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, nothing much. I guess you've probably seen it in the chat, but here, this is a.
I have not. I actually haven't seen the chat because my fucking monitor broke, so I have much less screen real estate right now. So I haven't actually been able to look at the chat. But go ahead.
Well, I'll read one of the articles that helped the HIV in Africa.
Okay.
The horrific practice putting women at increased reach of HIV. African and Indonesian women dry their vaginas with sand and bleach to make sex more pleasurable for men. That's the headline.
How? Okay, so I saw that, and I did reference it. I didn't really look into that, but when I was doing some research on the stuff, that kept coming up. How does that make sex more pleasurable to get a bunch of sand?
More friction.
But
that's what they say.
But the good kind of friction? Like,
dude, you ever want to find out?
You ever get sand in your bathing suit at the beach? It's a nightmare.
I try not to.
But I'm saying it's horrible.
Yeah.
What kind of fucking sadist shit is this?
Part of Africa is horrible.
Yeah, but I'm like, this is like sadism. You're like, that can't possibly feel better. What does bleach do?
Well, but the bleach is there to lube it up.
See, I could see the bleach being in there because they're coming at it like, bleach kills stuff like viruses. So they go, bleach will kill HIV, kind of like almost on some Trump, like injecting bleach shit.
They're going to have to sell bleach over there that says for external use only.
Yeah, Mark says that's obviously fake. That's what he says. But I don't know. I like the sand thing I've heard, but it doesn't make any sense to me. I haven't investigated it thoroughly enough to conclude whether that's real or not. But that doesn't pass the smell test to me. because everybody knows.
This is also part of the. Here, the article says a 2009 study looking at how dry sex spreads HIV in Zambian women found knowledge of the practice was widespread.
What's the source of this?
2/3 of the Daily Mail.
Okay. I mean, not that they're the most reputable, but I mean, if they cite a study, then it's probably a real study, I assume. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here. Yeah, that, I mean,
I wouldn't put it past the Zambian.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I just if my girl was like, "Hey, I'm gonna toss some fucking sand in my cooch because this is gonna feel better," my first instinct would be, "No, it's not. Don't do that." Yeah. But I don't know. Like the bleach thing, I could at least make sense to me from a standpoint of like, "Hey, this will kill the HIV," and that's why they're doing it. But, anyways, yeah. I don't know.
Sketch. Okay, on a side note before I go, you ever heard of the YouTube channel My Lunch Break?
No, I have not.
That's about all the old world buildings in history. But if you start looking through them all, they start having the same sort of like recurring theme. All these amazing, like the Roman basilicas and all these things were built within a couple years, which is impossible. And all of them catch on fire, and then it's an amazing 20-minute video where the guy started on his lunch break, and now it's amazing.
It's called My Lunch Break?
So, yes, it is. I think if you...
I'll check it out. I mean, the Vatican seems like it's all made, like a lot of those basilicas seem like they're made of like marble. I don't even know how they would catch on fire. I'm sure there is some wood there, but...
Exactly. He always basically says that when they say they're restoring it, they're actually destroying it. And what's funny is the UN, United Nations World, UNESCO, whatever, for the World Heritage Sites, take over all of them. It's quite interesting. Every Saturday at 4:30 is fantastic, but every Friday I got Boys Cast before that.
Gotcha. All right, well, I'll check it out. Thanks, dude.
All right, awesome. Well, I'll see you guys online.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Later, man. Yani, everybody. All right, let's take another call here. Stay on the line. We shall do our best to get to you. We got 7 more minutes before the break. Trent!
Yeah, hey, how are you?
Hey, what's up, man?
Hey. Yeah, I wanted to know who thought it would be a good idea to take somebody with more government contracts than anyone else out there and have them give them the keys to the government. I mean, what could go wrong? And sending a bunch of 20-something-year-olds in with flamethrowers, I think this is just brilliant.
Yeah, so sorry. With the big ball? Sorry, I just lost my video feed. One moment, please. I don't know what's going on here. This is the joys of doing everything myself is that I have no video. Hold on a second. Just give me 1 second here. I should be able to get this back up. I didn't even touch anything. Hold on. Sorry about this. Let's see if we can get it back here. No. Hold on. Oh, lovely. Hold on a second. Give me 1 second here.
Yep. This is very high tech. Hello.
Yeah, 1 second, Trent.
All right.
All right, hold on. Of course, the fucking camera got just disconnected from the power because this is low-value mail. All right, well, I don't know what the fuck's going on now. Trent, just stay with me there for a second. We should be back online in a moment here.
Okay.
No, doesn't want to do that. God damn it. There's always something, Trent. You know that? I mean, at least the audio. At least the audio listeners. Yeah, that is life. What's going on here?
So,
yeah, well, go ahead, Trent. What were we saying about the big balls?
So what I'm saying is, I'm trying to figure out, taking the person who has more government contracts than any other person.
Elon, you're saying that as Elon Musk?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
It's just brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, who better to do an audit than the person holding more government contracts than any other person? I mean, I just think it's
you think there's some sort of malarkey going on there? Sorry, Trent, you got to hold on a second. I got to fix this. Oh, here we go. Bless the Lord. Bless the Lord. We're back. I think we're back. It might be a little blurry, but this is the best we're going to do.
The theme to what these clowns are doing should be, we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah, I mean, so you're fully against this. Don't you think, though, that they're doing, for the most part, a good thing? Like, who would you rather do this?
You know what they should do? They should send a couple people in there with knives to do selective trimming. Sending a bunch of clowns with flamethrowers to burn the whole place down is beyond friggin' stupid. But that's MAGA. The MAGA morons think this is the best thing in the world until it starts to hurt them.
Sure.
These people are morons.
And so you're what exactly, like, are you concerned that they're going to cut off entitlements and things like that?
Well, let's look at USAID. They're jumping up and down like, oh, great. They're spending $30 million for transvestite poetry in Croatia.
Yeah.
Like, look, I get it. Get rid of that crap. But guess what? You know what they also did? They're pulling the plug on, I don't know, programs that help identify and contain horrible diseases like Ebola in the Congo. Mm-hmm. Hey, why fight Ebola in the Congo? Just let it come to like New York and New Jersey, and we can fight it here.
Sure.
Think of all the money we're saving on flights.
And I agree on that. And are you just kind of black-pilled on this whole idea that that's what they're going to do? Because personally, I actually don't think. I think
what
they're
do you mean
going
what they're going to do? It's what they're doing. It's what they did.
But did you hear?
Did you hear
the previous caller who called in? I think he was the first caller. He basically called in and he was like, he has a friend who works at an NGO in Myanmar that's like feeding children or whatever, and they were very concerned that because they had their funding had been, I don't know if it was cut off, but there was some issue where they were basically under the impression that they would lose their funding due to this USAID stuff. And then basically the next day or whatever, a day later, they found out that they were not impacted. So it does seem like they're going through this line item by line item. They're not just,
they're
wholesale
not,
kind of doing this.
To do this in a smart way would take a lot of time.
Yes.
They're not taking a lot of time.
Sure.
They're running around the China shop.
Yeah.
They're knocking shit over. They're breaking stuff. They're setting off bombs. Because they're retards.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you on this one.
Jumping up and down, going.
I will agree with you that there will likely be some collateral damage where they're going to cut off something where they go, "That was not wise to do that."
Because.
But how would you approach this?
Get it. I just told you. You do it in a smart way. You send people in with knives, surgical knives, who go around and trim the fat, and you take your time doing it. You don't send a bunch of 21-year-olds who are IT geeks and don't understand geopolitics and business.
Those 21-year-olds, they're not making these decisions. Like, those 21-year-olds are not just shutting down some NGO. All they're doing is they're writing code so they can analyze all these payments. Someone in the actual, I don't know if it's Elon Musk who's making these decisions, but I believe it's people in government who are actually making these final
Elon
decisions.
Musk, the brilliant genius. Elon Musk, the brilliant businessman that bought Twitter for $44 billion.
It's currently worth $44 billion.
People.
It's currently, it was, they had a valuation round, I believe, last week, and I believe it's back to the initial valuation. I mean, he definitely overpaid for it. It is, yeah. No way. They sold a bunch of debt last week.
The latest I've read is the market value is about $22 billion.
No, I mean, I could be wrong on this,
anyone that's dumb enough to go public and say to potential advertisers, "Go F yourselves," when your model is so heavily dependent upon advertisers.
Yeah,
the guy's a
I mean, yeah, I'm not very much on this whole he's a moron thing. He's obviously objectively like doing crazy stuff.
I get it. He's not.
But you got to give things like these time. Like we could be talking in a year from now, and it could have easily $100 billion valuation, and then people will be like, "Yeah, he overpaid for it at the time."
You're kidding yourself.
I don't think I am.
Utterly...
I don't think I am. And the interesting thing about the advertisers is, in my opinion, advertising on Twitter is maybe the least effective advertising. Every time you see an ad on Twitter, because it has like, you look at the comments and everybody's like, this is a scam. They get community noted. It's probably the worst social media place to advertise unless you're just straight like forward going for pure awareness and no sort of conversion.
You don't want your brand associated with Nazis? I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, but most of those people have come back. They're pretty much all. I mean, most of the companies that left when he told them to go fuck himself, they're pretty much all back. I think there's a couple that aren't, but for the most part, they've all returned.
I'm not so sure that
it's
such a cesspool. Twitter is such a cesspool.
I agree on the cesspool part.
What respectable brand would want to be associated with it?
I mean, Kanye West was posting hardcore pornography yesterday, and there was no filter to even put like a not suitable for work.
So if you're Coca-Cola or you're McDonald's, you want your ad next to Kanye's porn?
No. I mean, I understand.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a very valid point. Anyways, Trent, I got to let you go, but I appreciate you calling in. Thanks, man.
Yep. Thank you.
Trent, everybody. Sounds like he's got some blood boiling in the chat. All right. Unfortunately, with this whole snafu, I lost some time here. All right, we're gonna have to go to the break right now. I apologize if you've been waiting on the line, but I lost like 5 minutes there dealing with this goddamn camera. It's always something, isn't it? All right, we'll be back in 5 minutes with Richard Grove. Everybody, if you called in, I apologize we didn't get to you, but the phone lines will be open in another half of 1 hour. Please stick around. We'll be back. And in the meantime, enjoy a clip from a recent episode of The Bathhouse. If you've never caught an episode, funniest podcast, funniest live call-in show, that is, on the internet. This is the best one. That's the funniest one. See you soon.
Hey, Danny, this is Trey.
Trey.
I talked to you a few weeks ago.
How's it going?
Yeah. I talked to you a few weeks ago about I'm going through a divorce. My wife became a bitch. And whatever.
Classic.
Anyway, so.
Yeah. How are things going with that?
Dude, I'm feeling pretty good. I think I found like a life hack for dudes going through divorce.
Let's hear it, man.
A hitman?
Because a lot of people listening right now will be going through a divorce at some point.
I think a lot of people on the microphones will be going through a divorce at some point too.
Dude, I like the YouTube analytics for your show. It says divorced, and it's like 88%.
88?
Yeah. It's too low.
No, it's a specific number there.
This is what you do.
A dog whistle. Go ahead.
I found a site where you could find, and it's not Rub Maps. It's a different site where you could find reviews for Asian massage parlors.
Yeah. Okay.
And there'll be details about what they look like. Sometimes they have pictures of what they look like and their age estimates and things like that, and how much you could pay and what
25
to
45.
It's an Asian site, dude. You can only do an estimate.
Yeah, the best they can get is like
somewhere between 32 and 45.
It'll say that for sure. Like, and someone else will chime in and be like, "No, she's not 45. She's 56 or something."
Right on.
You know what I mean? It's like
community comes
when she went to go shower someone went through her wallet.
I like that we just started calling getting a rub and tug a life hack.
Yeah.
Oh no, dude! It's. I think if you're like a newly single guy and you're having a hard time, or you don't have the energy to like date or even really want to date. Like I don't want to date anyone right now. I don't need to deal with another chick right now.
Yeah. So the tuggies are getting you through it.
It's more than a tuggy, dude. They do everything.
Oh,
condom reach out to Pablo.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
What are the rates, just so we can compare it to see how badly Pablo got fucked over?
So the ones I go to, it's like $40 for a half hour, but then you pay the masseuse an extra tip. So basically, I go in, I give them $200,
Okay.
and then it's everything. It's suck, fuck, hand job, whatever.
And for an extra 100, they tell you how old they actually are.
What state are you in?
If they speak English.
If they speak English.
I'm in California.
Oh, okay.
So it's $40.
So this is actually useful info for Pablo, because Pablo's also in California.
No. The way the breakdown is, like, you could go in there, and if you don't know what's going on, and you're like, yeah, I want a 30-minute massage, they're like, yeah, it's $40. But
right.
If you go in there, you know what the vibe. Yeah, if you know what the vibe is, you be prepared to spend like $200.
So
and
the vibe is like.
You,
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, for $200, you could basically, that's like, you get full service with that.
Got it.
But yeah,
you don't have to say
what's your
full
question?
service. You just have to put the $200 on the counter, and it's like implied, right? Like,
it's implied.
Okay.
But if you check this site that I use, which I don't know if I want to blow it up right now, but
keeping the Rebbe site,
or you don't want to crash it.
Yeah, you'll know ahead of time like what you're going to get for what amount of money. You know what I mean? So it's like when I show up,
I like
Yelp for
I like the
times.
idea of saying the site's name on Bathhouse, and immediately the site just goes down. Too much traffic.
Well, I'm not even worried about. I'm worried about like maybe cops like being like, all right, we're gonna fucking go raid these places that are all.
Yeah,
on the
cops
site,
don't
you know
listen
what
to the show. I don't think so. If any
All
cops are listening to the show, they're cool cops.
They're cool.
They're cool. But you don't have to say the name.
Well,
That's fine.
Okay.
But so this is helping you get through the divorce. Most importantly,
You can put it in the chat.
Dude, I feel like I'll put it in the chat when I get off the phone. But yeah, it's definitely helping me, man. Like I feel like I'm not worried about dating, or I feel like I don't know. I just feel like I'm fine. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not worried about getting back with my ex or anything like that. I'm just like,
it's
dude,
getting the demons out for a very reasonable price.
Going to the gym, meditating. I'm not worried about any of that shit, dude. I'm just going to fucking rub and tugs for $200 a pop.
I have a question. So do you go to the same place, or do you kind of shop around?
I was shopping around at first until I found my spot, and I'm like, this is my spot.
And you have one girl who you frequent, or you kind of spreading the seed around?
Well, I don't see that. That's what I haven't figured out quite yet. Like right now, I'm just kind of like, I show up, and it's at this one place. It's three girls that work there, and it's whoever comes to the door. You know, that's the one I'm getting. But
Right.
I've heard you can
It's like a walk-in barber shop.
I've heard of people like, kind of like that. But
The site only estimates if it's the same girl or not.
Really funny.
But yeah, I mean, like it's so far at this spot, like every girl there's been fucking great. So like I'm.
Perfect, and we're back, everybody, with Richard Grove. How's it going, man?
I'm doing so well, Danny. It's a pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. Your much requested guest. Let me just make sure everything's working here, because I have a tendency to fuck up.
That happens, man. It's live.
Dude, this live shit, man, it's hell on earth. I know I complain about it like on a near weekly basis, but I have issues on a near weekly basis, so I feel like I have the right. So for people who don't know you, could you just tell them just quickly who you are, your background?
Yeah, my name's Richard Grove. I'm a forensic historian. I'm a podcaster, researcher, filmmaker, conceptual artist. I've learned to teach myself to do whatever I need to do whatever I want to do.
Excellent. Okay. So we were what were we talking about on the break there? Quickly, that Netanyahu's...
the deep state.
What was it? Netanyahu is running or Israel runs the deep state? What did he say?
All right. So it's an article from Haaretz from April of 2020. The title is Netanyahu says the deep state, that's in quotes, deep state controls Israel. There's no democracy here. And so in looking for examples of, a lot of people have been using the term deep state recently.
Yeah.
And I was looking for modern contemporaneous examples of where people in power might have used it to refer to themselves and or the deep state. Traditionally in history, I think it's Peter Dale Scott in the 1970s who coins the phrase deep state in the English language. There's other countries that had kind of used a phrasing like that, but in English, it's pretty much Peter Dale Scott. He and William Engdahl had written on it in a very scholastic, academic way. And up until recently, it was like a conspiracy theory. But now,
after they tried to kill Trump twice, seems like it might have some legs.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it. Deep state basically in America just refers to an international apparatus that's reaching into our country and kind of puppeting it.
It's not internal. Like I always kind of thought of it as like kind of a corporate.
Well, they are Americans, but they're loyal to an internationalist, larger, like New World Order globalist agenda. So there are people in our country here that are participating. Like David Rockefeller was one of these people, but he's an American industrialist tycoon who just didn't think America was the thing. He thought globalism and internationalism were the better idea.
Really? Rockefeller was into that stuff even then?
Okay, so it sounds cliche. So David Rockefeller in 2001 published his memoirs right before he died. And in there on page 408, under the chapter title is Proud Internationalist. On the right-hand page, he says, there are those who accuse me and my family of having internationalist ideas and supporting these sort of ideas that go toward globalism. And he says, as I stand accused, I'm guilty. He's like, yes, that's what we're doing. So he admits it in his memoirs for those who want to read. And if you went back just to in the 1950s, there was two attempts to investigate the non-profit tax-exempt foundations and to see what they were doing in America. And they were accused of un-American activities. So there was this whole congressional committee. There was two of them. The first one I think was called the Cox Committee. And the industrialists, the robber barons, had it shut down. And then this other guy, Carol Reese, comes along and he revives it. And he investigates the Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundation, and Carnegie Endowment for International Advancement of Peace. And he finds that all those organizations, and more of them, have un-American agendas to change the attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs of Americans to be in line with Soviet Russia. And they would do this by changing our education system over a series of years. The Carnegie Endowment starts in the 1930s to kind of do that. Ford Foundation and Rockefeller Foundation, primary funders of the CIA, MK Ultra, all those kind of deep state things. Those are not in America's interest to do those things, but it is in the interest of those who want to take over the entire world.
Sure.
So once you start finding the evidence and the artifacts that kind of lays out that actual picture of the deep state, now you can get more into it and you can find other pieces of evidence there was this guy called Barry Goldwater who ran for president one time. He was a United States senator. He also had memoirs that he left behind. His are, what's it called? With No Apologies, it's called. I got two copies of it. Chapters 31, 32, 33, and 34 are most illuminating. Chapter 33 is called Our Non-Elected Rulers. Mm-hmm. And he maps out the whole deep state in the 1970s. He's like, here's the Council on Foreign Relations, here's Trilateral Commission, here's these people who have allegiances above American ideals and constitutional Republican ideas, right? And so he points it out. But at the same time, David Rockefeller's brother is vice president in the United States. They're bringing in Zbigniew Brzezinski. That's also David Rockefeller. And they make the Trilateral Commission in the 70s. So when Goldwater's writing this, he also said, he's like, here's how they picked Jimmy Carter. David Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski went and find this peanut farmer dude, and they take him to Wall Street and convince the investors, this is our guy. And he writes all about it in great detail. So when you start, you see one of those things and you're like, I don't know whether or not to believe this. But when you get 10 or 50 or 100 of those things and they all point toward this thing that everyone says is a conspiracy theory, life gets a lot more interesting. Like I
Sure.
never wanted to read history. Like I didn't read for entertainment. I didn't read fiction. I didn't read facts, you know, because I was in the corporate world and I was making a lot of money and I was having a good time. But when I bumped up against the deep state and I became a whistleblower and sacrificed a multi-million-dollar career because I didn't have an accurate map to tell me, hey, if you go up against these entities, like there is no justice. It's a rigged game. They have top-down control. You might think you have the evidence and can go forth and adjudicate. So in learning about the deep state, like it was a slow process. But one of my major turning points was, I think it was the first night of, so I blew the whistle in 2003 under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. It's a federal law that was trying to clean up our economic system from and keep it fraud free.
Was there a financial incentive for your whistleblowing? Because that's big money right now.
No, I mean, no, there wasn't a financial incentive.
Because now they have don't they have a thing right now where if you like, I don't know if it's the IRS or the SEC, but if you blow the whistle on like certain frauds, like you get a portion of them.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Whistleblowing in our country, I found out, is like an early warning system for the people doing the skullduggery.
Right.
And they are deeper into the system than you will be. And, there was a Supreme Court justice, Oliver Wendell Holmes, that says any justice worth his salt makes a decision before he hears the case because justices don't want to upheave the status quo, right? So if you got a young kid like me and I'm suing a multi-billion-dollar company that's tied into the deep state, and by that I meant the company I sued had a billionaire owner who was Cheney's largest fundraiser and was presently the ambassador to Ireland. I didn't know any of this at the time. I just knew what they were doing was wrong.
Right.
Someone should do something about it.
You're just
right?
a pie-eyed young man.
And then I found out. And then so the lawyers I was up against when I went to court and went through the first day of trial, so I just testified for like 8 hours. I came home trying to take my mind off the case, and I'm reading The House of Morgan by Ron Chernow, who's an excellent writer. I read all his books, his biographies on the Warburgs and all the tycoons, right? And there's a part in there in J.P. Morgan, and it says, at this point, J.P. Morgan wanted to do like hostile takeover work, arbitrage and things that were like, you get your hands dirty.
Sure.
And so it says their white glove WASP law firm of Davis, Polk, and Wardell said they didn't want to do this. So J.P. Morgan went to this fledgling firm, this new firm, Skadden, Arps, Marr, and Floem. And that was the law firm that was defending the company that I was suing. And I looked them up because I was like, first off, dude, that's I just bumped into something, right?
Right.
And then I looked them up, and it's like every time the United States government got in trouble with like Iran-Contra and BCCI and human trafficking and stuff, they would go to that law firm to help them like keep it.
And it's all like the good old boys club kind of thing.
It
right?
is.
It's like all those law firms are like writing parts of like the legal code. And
look, when you go to a marina and you see those yachts, those are lawyers who win cases. That case bought me that yacht. That case bought me that yacht. It's not like doctors and accountants are buying those yachts,
Right.
So there was, I call that my $1 million education, going up and going through court and not wasting. I mean, I built my literary skills and my research skills by being my own attorney. And, I beat them by the rules of court in court, but they decided against me. And it took 9 months to give a decision to my case. So they could be like, what you said happened, but it's just slightly outside the statute of limitations and other little technicalities, right?
Right.
And at that point, I had learned enough that I wasn't going to go try again in the rigged system. And so then I just started saying, look, I had a really good opportunity in the corporate space. I was selling enterprise software to big banks and defense contractors and stuff, but that's no longer my future. Well, what should I do? Well, before I go back out on the playing field and make another error that cost me years and millions of dollars, maybe I should figure out what's going on. Maybe there's some things I should be read into before I make more moves on the board. And as I went around and started collecting evidence, I mean, first off, we're talking, this is like 2002, 2003, 2004. The internet exists, but it's not very well populated, right? Your best bet is to go to eBay, type in conspiracy DVD, and someone's going to sell you 50 or 100 movies that are bootlegged, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start going through that stuff. And in one of those presentations led me to some books, right? The first book I found was a book called Tragedy and Hope by a professor from Georgetown called Carroll Quigley. And Carroll Quigley, he was the teacher of Bill Clinton. He was the mentor of Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton thanked him during his inauguration speech. It was a big deal. So in 66, Quigley publishes this book. It's 1,300 pages, right? And it's not meant to be really read by the average common person. It's a very studious history of like the 20th century. The subtitle is a history of the world in our time. It kind of tells a story. If you break into it, there's key pages in the 1,300 pages that are really illuminating as far as how the world really works. If you get to page 50 through like 54, he starts telling you there's this whole other kind of deep state apparatus, if you will, that influences top down our society. If you make it up to like page 960, he'll put a couple more pages in there. Here's how they work. The Bank for International Settlements and, Montague Norman from the Bank of England and Hitler's banker from Brooklyn, Horace Greeley Helmar Schacht, and they make the Bank of International Settlements. And so now you're starting to see the history and evolution of these institutions, Council on Foreign Relations, Rhodes Scholarships, all these things. He's showing you this is how it works. Now, how did he write that book? Well, he had a whistleblower come to him 20 years before and tell him a crazy story, which he never published until after his death. So Quigley's other main book is called The Anglo-American Establishment. It comes out in 1981. Quigley dies in 77, and then they publish the book. The book is a whistleblower's account of this group of, Anglo-American, it's British and American industrialists who want to take over the world and have a real plan.
Yeah.
That's at that point 50 years in motion, right?
But he's not writing because I'm always interested about stuff like that, because he's not writing this as an indictment of these people.
No, because he lives among them.
He lives among them, right? I always find it
them.
so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because, especially with conspiracies and stuff, everybody's like, everybody posits about these things, and you're like, it's actually all out there. And it's so weird because you think that the people who are conspiring would not snitch on themselves. But it's actually all this stuff is just out there.
Well, Danny, H.G. Wells called it the open conspiracy, and he wrote it in a book. He also wrote a book called The New World Order. He wrote a book called The New Machiavellis. He wrote a book about the elite separating from the rest of society and having a dominance from technology called The Shape of Things to Come. It's all out there if people wanted to read it. Alan Dulles famously said, when they said, aren't you scared that people are going to go through this evidence and figure out it's not one guy? And he's like, yeah, well, the few who do will be researchers, and it'll be like to the corners of the world.
Right.
They're not going to get published. The average person doesn't have the capacity to read and figure it out.
900 pages.
I have on this shelf right here a 30-volume set of the Warren Commission report that belonged to United States senators. They were issued this book set. It's like an encyclopedia set. And when people come over and they're like, hey, what's that? I said, that's the Warren Commission report. They needed 30 volumes to convince you it was a lone gunman with a magic bullet.
Yeah, right. They just know that nobody's reading that shit. It's like they're essentially obfuscating.
Well, the other thing that happens with these events, and this is what Quigley and Anthony Sutton really help you with, like when you see, as a citizen, 9/11, that's a terrible, tragic terrorist attack by guys with box cutters who obviously took over some airliners and did some bad things. If you don't know the contextual history, that's what you're left to believe. You have nothing to compare it to. If you know the history of how the British infiltrated our intelligence community to create OSS and CIA and NSA for worldwide surveillance and technocracy and cybernetics and all these other things, Operation Gladio and Iran-Contra, and then we get to 9/11, I would be like, hey, the same guys who just killed Kennedy just did this thing.
Sure. This is just another
thing. Or the
doing.
Second generation, right? They're kids. Instead of H.W. Bush, it's W. Bush and Jeb and these guys, right? But it's a multi-generational cult of serial killers who seek power and participate in narco-terrorism. And they're pretty good at it because they can do it in front of everybody. They can have books. They can have books telling people this is the deep state. This is the super class. They have a variety of names that they call themselves,
Sure. Now, would you say that stuff is harder now? It seems like more people are onto this stuff than obviously would have been pre-internet. Like at least,
it has been so refreshing for like the last, since COVID. They did us a big favor in COVID. Look, when I got into this, I used to work in the World Trade Centers, and I was an eyewitness that morning. So I started having questions after that day. I didn't get evidence until, months, and then you get more understanding as you go along. But once you start to see, these people have been operating for a long time, and the traditional media outlets wouldn't publish it. So
it's their buddies, right?
Now it's everywhere on social media, especially since Elon bought Twitter. It's so much easier to get people to look at the facts than it was 20 years ago. Back then, it was like only for people with long enough attention spans, right, to take in like larger chunks of information. Because if you have a short attention span, you can't even get through any of the one pieces of evidence to show you it's real.
Yeah. And most people have never read a 900-page book in their life. Even.
But you don't have to read that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a book called Tragedy and Hope 101 by Joseph Plummer. And it's a Cliff Notes of Anglo-American Establishment and Tragedy and Hope all in one. And he has an audio version and a free he gives it to you on joeplummer.com if you just want it for free.
Cool.
But you can buy it on Amazon. And that's like the Rosetta Stone, because once you get the gist, there was this guy called Cecil Rhodes. He was a Freemason and a graduate of Oxford.
He's the Rhodes of Rhodes Scholar?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's the Rhodes of De Beers, diamonds.
Oh, wow.
The diamond cartel that was not allowed to participate in America until 2012. It was illegal for De Beers to do business in North America.
Well, I mean, if people remember, they used to have the commercials, remember, with the shadows?
Yes.
Remember those shadow commercials?
With the classical music?
Yeah, the classical music, and it was just the diamond, but it was the shadows, and then they basically banned them because they listed them as a cartel.
Yeah, there was conflict diamonds. Well, conflict diamonds are the ones get away from their system. They're like, those are blood diamonds, right? I did a podcast years ago. It was Peace Revolution, episode 28, Diamonds, the Jewel of Denial. And it gives you the whole, because, dude, it's all a scam.
Oh.
So,
buddy, you're telling me I just got married, and the first thing I did before I bought my wife an engagement ring, just to piss her off, is I sent her, it was an article from... Can't remember where the article from. It's a very old article and says, "Have you ever tried to sell a diamond?"
That's what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
So that's Edward J. Epstein. He was my
a like-minded Jew like myself who knows diamonds are a fucking scam.
Edward J. Epstein went to Cornell University, and he was roommates with my friend John Taylor Gatto, who recently passed away. So John and Jay used to be college roommates. And as soon as Kennedy got killed, so John Gatto and Jay Epstein are together when Kennedy gets assassinated. And they say, if the gunman is dead by the end of the weekend, we know it's a conspiracy, right? After they shoot Oswald.
It's crazy for them to think that at the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Edward J. Epstein, he goes to the New York Times, or he goes and he publishes a book called Inquest. It's the first book to question the Kennedy assassination. What he does, he doesn't question the assassination. He questions the method by which the Warren Commission came to their conclusion. It was a New York Times bestseller because he said it in the right way. He then went on to do a whole bunch of biographies of like James Jesus Angleton and people like that. But he wrote that article, Have You Ever Tried to Sell a Diamond? And from that, he wrote a book all about that. And in between, he went to South Africa, embedded himself with the Oppenheimer family, and learned that diamonds have no value, and it's all created through marketing. And they went to the kings and queens, and they said, wear diamonds, because they wanted to wear the colorful stones, not the clear stones. And they're like, no, here, we're going to cut you guys a deal. They did it to the Japanese and got them all into it. And it's a fantastic story.
I know.
And
the whole diamonds are forever thing, and like
Ian Fleming.
The 3-month salary was literally a marketing firm on Park Avenue.
1928.
Just invented
like that.
Yeah. They just go 3 months.
Yeah.
And every dude is just like, fuck you.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And so that is part of the history. But so Cecil Rhodes, he's in his 20s. He gets funded to go to South Africa. He gets funding from the Rothschild banking family. He goes down, does his thing. He leaves a last will and testament to take his fortune, because he has no kids. He's in the dudes and Boy Scouts. They created the Lovat Scouts in Rhodesia, or the proto Boy Scouts. So when there's all this child abuse in Boy Scouts, they've always been taking boys to the woods for
that's the kind of like how it started.
So Rhodes has he has this will and testament. He says, I want to leave my fortune to take, like, basically for the British Empire to take over the world. This also meets British Freemasonry, kind of goals too, because they're looking for dominance. So he went to a couple popular groups. He said, I want to help you guys achieve your agenda. I have a plan. They took his plan. One of his beneficiaries, not in the last version of the will, was Lord Rothschild. Then it got changed to Lord Rothschild's son-in-law, Lord Rosebery, for like separation from the bankers, right?
Sure.
So then Rhodes dies in 1902. Part of the fortune goes to the Rhodes scholarships, which Lord Rothschild creates at Oxford in 1902, or maybe even 1900 they create it right before he died. And then the other part goes to a secret society. And he details it in his last will and testament with a co-conspirator called William T. Stead. Now, William T. Stead, he died later on the Titanic after he disagreed with this plan. But in 1902, Rhodes is like, wouldn't it be a great idea if we would take over America by use of a secret society that's based on the Jesuits, but in place of Roman Catholic Church, we put British Empire? And they're like, yes, it's a great plan. So Rhodes dies, and immediately they install the Pilgrim Society in America in 1902. And this gets like the upper crust, robber baron people who would go to Jekyll Island and have like big dinners on top of Indian burial mounds and stuff that are on Jekyll Island, right? One of the Lawrence Rockefeller's house. That's like a whole famous thing. Anyway.
That's in like Jacksonville or something, outside of Jacksonville?
Yeah, it's right outside. Yeah, it's right near Jacksonville on the
St. Augustine?
border of. Yeah, it's like probably 2 hours, maybe not even that far from there, because Jay lives in St. Augustine, and it's like right after you leave his place on 95 or whatever, going up to 95 to get through Georgia. But yeah, it's on Jekyll Island, and that was like 1902. So then by 1913, they're bringing in the Federal Reserve under Woodrow Wilson. They get America into the war in 1917 because Colonel Edward Mandell House, who's like the puppeteer of Wilson, he cuts a deal with this British guy called Lord Grey, and they have a conversation like, how can we get America into the war? Well, if one of your ships got sunk by a German submarine, would you guys get into the war? Yes. Within an hour of that decision, Lusitania gets sunk. So when you follow the correspondence back and forth, and then they go meet with the king, and then the thing happens, I tend to think, and Winston Churchill's running it out of Room 40, which was their proto-intelligence kind of GCHQ, signals intelligence listening station. And you see Churchill rise to power after that. So it becomes clear when you get into the history far enough, but to try to extrapolate it without use of slides, graphics, or tools.
Right.
They have us now in an international conflict that we had nothing to do with, right? Takes out a whole bunch of Americans. And now after that, 1921, they install the Council on Foreign Relations, which is this group that wants to scuttle America, but the British couldn't do it through military force. We beat them at the Battle of New Orleans in 1814. Andrew Jackson told them to kiss off. And then ever since then, they've tried to take us over with like banking power. So by the time you get to 1913, they've got the banking power. By the time we get to 1921, they install a political headquarters in New York at the Pratt House, Council on Foreign Relations. Now, it is part of the Royal Institute of International Affairs, which the Rockefellers, an American family, funded in Britain. Okay, so the Royal Institute is a British thing funded in part by the Rockefellers. And then after they create that in 1919, they create Council on Foreign Relations in 1921. So now you've got this stronghold to create policy within our country. And so many presidents have had their cabinets full of Council on Foreign Relations people. Those are all just people executing on the last will and testament of Cecil Rhodes. If you look modern times, you see, Hillary Clinton in a picture at the CFR with Richard Haas, who's the chairman. Well, she's married to a Rhodes Scholar, and he is a Rhodes Scholar. And you start going into like, where else have the Rhodes Scholars been hanging out? Oh, George Stephanopoulos, Rachel Maddow, Strobe Talbot, the guy that I blew the whistle under Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Paul Sarbanes is a Rhodes Scholar. I didn't know that at the time. But in hindsight, when you go back and start learning these things and you start mapping them out, you've got a bunch of people who, so what does it mean to be a Rhodes Scholar? You are a top academic pick in America, and the empire wants you. So they bring you over to Oxford, and you matriculate at Oxford in the 1,000-year university's ideas, and then you bring those back home to sprout in America or Germany. They did it all over the world. So in World War I, you had Rhodes Scholars in Germany working in German intelligence, feeding it back to like Room 40 and Winston Churchill and these guys. So they're very advanced.
Yeah, it seems like an early kind of World Economic Forum, how they have like the fellows where they go and they pick them off all over the world.
Well, I mean, when you look into, so I'm big into looking, if there's an influential institution, I want to know what is its history and evolution. So the World Economic Forum became popular with COVID. Everybody found out who Klaus Schwab is.
Klaus Schwab.
And I have like all of Klaus Schwab's major books. Like he's done a lot of like side stuff, but I got 10 or 15 Klaus Schwab books over here. I'm hip to.
He's written 15 books.
Well, I mean, you got the Fourth Industrial Revolution, you got the COVID book, you've got his one on public partnerships, you got the 50-year anniversary of the joint. There's a bunch of Klaus Schwab books. Huh. So, and these are in Grand Theft World podcast episodes. And if you go to grandtheftworld.com and you click the tab that says Clip Genie and you search Klaus Schwab, you can find it'll just bring all the video clips to your fingertips.
Oh, amazing.
So, yeah. So Klaus Schwab, he's like a Renfield. He's not Dracula. He's the guy who serves Dracula, right? In this case, let's say Dracula might be, Rockefeller interests, and at their Rockefeller Bellagio Italian estate, they come up with something called the Club of Rome. And the Club of Rome has some former Nazis, like Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, and an Italian fascist dude, Aurelio Peccei, and Prince Charles, or one of the other dudes from that royal family. So they create the Club of Rome, which sounds like it has something to do with the Pope, but it's just like some industrialists figuring out how they can take over the world. Club of Rome has a couple different interesting studies over the years. They had one in 1970 called The Predicament of Mankind. Oof. And what they said was,
sound good.
Mankind's the problem. What are we going to do about it? So they said we should have a yearly world forum created to do this thing. Well, 1970, they wrote the paper. 1971, Davos starts. Klaus Schwab is instrumental and like the proto player of that organization. By 73, they create this thing called the Davos Manifesto, and they say what they're trying to do, right? If you follow that, then 20 years into the future, by the 90s, they're very specific about it. There's a chapter in the book, The First Global Revolution by the Club of Rome.
How are they funded? Do people pay to go there? Where does their funding come from?
I mean, these are like the toy think tanks of these industrialists who are trying to take over the world, like the Gates Foundation or Clinton Foundation. They're just trying to figure out how to expand their power and create more domination. So in this book, The First Global Revolution by the Club of Rome, they say the common enemy is man. And they said, by artificially creating a whole bunch of garbage and waste and all this other stuff, we can convince people that global warming, pollution, overpopulation are the problems to be solved. And then it says the common enemy of humanity is man, so that they have to like basically self-destruct.
Yeah.
So these are not healthy people. They just have a lot of money. And
I guess they have so much money that they feel like they're the puppet masters of the universe, kind of where they go, we know what's best for everything. Because we have so much money, obviously that's the benchmark of why they're so smart. And they go, because of that fact, we should be reorganizing the world, essentially.
Yeah, I think there's two phases. There's the one where they have money and people around them don't know how to get money, so they want the money. So when that person asks, these people say yes, and that person never hears no, and they become a sociopath.
Right.
First off, right? And then the other aspect is what happens when these people get together. Their needs are very different than ours. They're like, hey, maybe we should colonize Mars, right? They're like, they get ideas other than how to keep a roof over your head and healthy food for your family and these sort of basic, everyday, enjoying your life type of things. These other people are here for a different reason. And some of them, many of them, are not here creating or facilitating freedom in any way, shape, or form. They're just feeding from other people's freedom. They're plundering other people's production. And that's where I think people could be better informed and be living more efficient, effective lives if they didn't have like this parasitic entity pulling energy. But it's doing it from our approval. If we don't think something through, if we assume, we're under mind control because we didn't check that fact out, right? So they don't need just like cages and pills and stuff like that to control people. They can control people through assumptions. They can control people a lot of other ways, but just getting people to turn off the quantum computer between their ears is a major function of how they can be easily and readily controlled.
Yeah.
And that's been done.
And they run all the media and everything you basically put in front of your face for the most part.
Well, until recently.
Yes.
When I blew the whistle, you know, I said to somebody...
Like that was what, you blew the whistle in 2006, did you say?
2003.
2000,
yeah.
So there was no way for you to get any of this out, really.
Dude, I went to
disseminate all this.
I went to all the top lawyers. I went to Jerry Spence. I went to top investigative journalists. Like I saw Al Pacino play Lowell Bergman in the movie The Insider after I blew the whistle. So I said, where's Lowell Bergman today? Oh, he's working for PBS. Where's he at? I get Lowell Bergman. I send him two banker boxes of evidence. They worked on that story for like 2 years. And then at the end, he said, look, I can't work in your story anymore. One of the editors got fired. The other one's being threatened with losing their job. Like there's nothing like this may have happened, but I can't print it. And I'm like, so after running into that type of situation many times, it's risky to critique the people in power. It's even riskier to have legally attained audio recordings of these people admitting it and then try to get that published back then.
Right.
And at one point,
and you had probably 5 avenues to do that. You had 5 major news
and they're
outlets.
all controlled by the CIA that you're trying to tell on, right?
Exactly.
So at one point, the SEC was investigating my employer, and so at one point I called him, and it was my 30th birthday. I was turning 30. It was October of whatever year it was, 2003, and I called the lawyer from the SEC. His name was Kevin. And I said, hey, Kevin, I work at such and such place. I know you already have a case open and you have an investigation. Here's what I'm seeing from my side. I'm really concerned because it puts all of our clients at risk for money laundering and narco-terrorism. And he said, do you know we could put you in prison for what you just told me? And it was a very, like, not what I was expecting type of call.
Yeah, like the opposite.
Right? It was like, shut up and get off the phone and don't call back, instead of taking notes and taking my case, like, you know, here's my details.
Yeah.
And so it was a couple days after that I formally wrote to like the CEO and the legal counsel at my company, and I blew the whistle by the book, by the training and the law that they told me to train my clients by. And then on that exact day, when you find this out in court years later, the exact day I blew the whistle, November 4th, 2003, they ordered my termination before they even looked at any of my claims, because they knew my claims were true. They knew I was messing up a multi-billion-dollar merger that they had lied and cooked the books for, and that a lot of people could go to jail. And so at the end of the day, I think I got off lucky by just getting the rigged game instead of getting put 6 feet under.
Sure. Because those people tend to never go to jail. It's so
Look,
rare.
I have a friend near here that went to high school with my wife. He's an attorney, and he was a congressman here in Connecticut. When AIG was being investigated, and AIG was part of my origin story of their, like, they're a corrupt CIA front, right?
Yeah.
So when he was trying to prosecute AIG, this is like 2008, they, not proxies, the people from AIG called him and threatened him and his family openly. And they're like, what are you going to do about it? And that guy quit, stopped being a congressman, stopped being a lawyer. Like
this is a congressman. This isn't just some guy paper pusher out of some company.
This is my point. Yes. So when you see someone who's like in pseudo power in your state and they get touched like that, and they're like, I'll go make whatever, and I'm not doing that anymore. And then the guy who didn't push back, now he's a senator. He's a very powerful senator from Connecticut. Blumenthal went along with the whole pay out AIG, give them billions of dollars, even though they ripped off the country.
Sure.
And participated in 9/11.
I want to ask you something a little, because we've been talking about historical stuff, and then we're going to open the phone lines, because I know people have some questions for you. But so you're obviously talking about all this historical stuff. Trump is doing what appears to be some historic things right now in terms of just the speed and the quantity of stuff he's doing. Is there any like historical context for what he's doing right now?
Yeah, FDR, a Democrat, did the exact same thing and more. FDR closed all the banks. FDR seized everybody's gold. There's a whole bunch of other things that Trump hasn't even, like, he's not going to do that type of stuff. But like, if for people who are like, he's signing a lot of executive orders and doing things, the country's in a crisis. Country's being
specifically
turned
what, the
upside
debt?
down. Well, with the debt, with like the border and the artificial paying that bishop who critiqued him the day after at the inauguration, you know, the bishop who critiqued him for
the lesbian.
Yeah, her organization got $53 million from like USAID to relocate migrants into America. Right. So there's a whole bunch of people getting our taxpayer dollars to bring people from other countries to vote for one side that's collectivism and doesn't respect rugged individualism and the can-do mentality of people who are self-reliant and then can work together voluntarily, as opposed to just everybody being subjugated to a political party. The Democrat Party historically, right? And I'm sorry for anyone who, like, when we all choose parties growing up, did we know what we're doing? No, we don't. Okay, so don't feel bad about this. But the Democrat Party is the party that supported the Confederacy and the slavery. And the Democratic chairman during the Civil War was the Rothschild banking family's personal manager in America. His name's August Belmont. So they trained him and sent him to America to trade under their name so that people wouldn't know that an international banking family was running that entire syndicate, because it was a corrupt criminal syndicate, which, you know, today it's the lineage of that corrupt criminal syndicate. The brilliance of their syndicate was in the 70s, instead of owning people of color, they convinced people of color that their party was the Democrats. Right. And that whole thing, I think, was very disingenuous to their audience, and their audience will figure it out at some point. They'll be tired of being gaslit by their oppressors, and they'll lose the Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
But that's an individual journey. I'm not political. I gave that up in 2004.
Fair. Fair. All right, the phone lines are open, 1-888-949-2969 if you have any questions for Richard. I'm sure some of you do. I had a caller actually call in about this, and I've personally been wondering about this because I can't really get a handle on exactly what's going on here. So I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on this whole Trump-Gaza thing? Is this some strategy? Is he serious? Is this an earnest? He actually cares about this? Because this one is one of the few things I actually cannot really pin down what he's thinking here.
Yeah, I talked about this last night on the show a little bit. And so my breakdown is this. First off, I've never met Trump. I don't know what he's thinking. But I saw BB's reaction, and he was surprised. And I think Trump, you know, just like he likes to pull people's hand when he shakes it, you know, he does that thing where he gets you off balance.
He ragdolls you a little bit.
He's downstreaming BB with his argument. He's basically saying, oh, you guys don't want to ethnically cleanse and rebuild in that area? That's not your intention? Then we'll just take it over then. Because you don't have any plans for that area, right? You haven't been trying to do this thing for 20, 30 years, right? You know, well, I could go back longer, but
sure. But like, you actually think he has an interest in rebuilding? Like how would that even work? Like, I still don't really get it.
I think he has interest in rebuilding. I think Jared has a lot of interest in rebuilding. Jared and BB have had a very cozy relationship over the years. And, you know, Trump's
Jared's a big real estate developer. That's kind of his trade.
And they've already had, like, I played clips on the show 6 months or a year ago where they already had plans for building apartment buildings in the rubble. They're just like, the pictures, the graphics were right on top of the rubble. They're like, look, we could put, like, here's a whole row of new apartment buildings and condos and resorts. And so that plan has been underway, and that's really the linchpin of Trump's policy. He doesn't have too much freedom because he's married in, like, his daughter's married in with Jared.
Yeah.
His kids will probably have right to return and all the
absolutely
good things that come with that,
they're
right?
Orthodox, basically.
Right. Well, that's an issue though. The Orthodox are not liked by the Zionists in Israel. They get beat down all the time. You know, there are so many Orthodox Jews who protest Zionism.
Well, I don't think they're that Orthodox. They're like,
okay, so that's my point.
They're not like I think they refer to themselves as Orthodox Jews, but I don't think they're.
I don't even think they follow the light switch. They don't even follow the light switch rule on Saturdays.
Like, they're not that Orthodox. They're somewhere closer to the middle.
Yeah. So, first off, the Gaza situation is tragic and more tragic by the day. If something was done, I would like if I could write it, like if someone said, "Hey, Rich, do you have a solution for Gaza?" I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't know. Let's sketch something out. Sounds like we need a solution. Everything's destroyed. There's 2 million people. How about we build everything back brand new and give them some money and jobs and community and protection so they don't get destroyed again? And you like build it in their image, not like a Western place, but build it like how they would like it to be built. Like they could have some say in the rebuilding. We have plenty of money. I mean, the entire state of Israel was created by a banking family. We can cut off some money and rebuild this area for sure and leave them alone. Like if you want the rest of the country, because, you know, there is a lot of land over there that's not used.
Yeah.
Right. And they have like developed areas that people haven't lived before. So I don't say send Europeans back to Europe, and I don't say send Palestinians to Egypt and Jordan and these other places. I think if they all want to live there and not move, they have to learn how to get along. But somebody other than Bibi is going to have to make that happen, because there's a lot of people who put Bibi in power who were very like bloodthirsty and racist.
Sure.
And that doesn't help on any side.
No.
You know? And I see there's a lot of confusion and hatred explained on the internet and expressed on the internet these days. But I think a lot of that can be overcome with some education and just a little education on both sides. Like there's times when they're like, that side is teaching their kids to do terrorism. It's like, well, have you looked in your kids' school books? Because you're doing it too. And then if we can both realize for a minute, the Palestinian kids are being propagandized with terrorism against the Israelis, and the Israelis are being propagandized their children against the Palestinians. That is not helping the future whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm kind of a bit of a doomer on this whole thing where I go, I don't see a scenario where this ever gets sorted out.
Well, I mean, let's rewind. There wasn't a situation until the early 1900s. There were Jews and Muslims living there, and all sorts of variety of people there, because it's a big trading area for thousands of years. Of course. Right? So you've got a melting pot kind of culture, kind of like America. We had people from a lot of different places. I grew up in Pittsburgh. You couldn't walk down a street without seeing every other person is from a different place. They're all immigrants. You got the Croatians at war with the Serbs over there in Europe, but their clubs are right next to each other in Pittsburgh, and they're fine. Right? So you can have these people with these different beliefs, and they can all get along and work, you know, together for common goals, but they can't do that when one or both sides are always being told like the extreme without the context. Right? So like people are like 10-7 is the reason that they're doing all this stuff for the next 2 years. Right, the complete, and West Bank. West Bank had nothing to do with 10-7. It's Palestinian Authority. It's not Hamas, and they've had almost equal treatment. There's been all sorts of stuff that's gone on military-wise that like wasn't provoked from their side. So when you see all this going on, and people want to say, well, let's draw a line and say 10-7, Hamas did this thing, and therefore justifies this next 2 years. Okay, what happened the day before? Like, did a bunch of Zionists go taunt, you know, they go to a mosque and taunt a bunch of people on a holiday? Did that have anything to do with it? You're right, it didn't, because Mossad knew about the plan for a year ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, it seems hard to believe that
rave,
that they just were like, you know,
the rave was scheduled like a week before. It wasn't a long-standing schedule. When it was scheduled, they knew that's when Hamas was likely to attack, and they're like, oh, we got some human shields right here, because that's not the Israeli people. These are just people in the upper hive of defense who have only been given one side of the story and think they're doing God's work all the time, and it happens in countries around the world. You get true believers any place without context, and they act like radicals. So I think it can all be tuned down, because once upon a time, it was peaceful.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the once upon a time thing. The problem, I think, is just like that was too far. They're like almost too far gone.
Do you ever see the meme?
From like just for them to both just mentally reset and just.
Yeah, but there's an opportunity here. So there was a meme, and it's like a black ant and a red ant in a jar, and the jar has a label that says "Shake this jar," right? And the British Empire has been shaking that jar over there for a long time, right? They went in and created the whole, you know, from the Balfour Declaration of the British giving away land that wasn't theirs to a Zionist contingent that was going to get help America become part of World War I. When they cut that deal and they've got that receipt for that property transaction, Israel doesn't come around until 1948. What happened in between? Oh, British mandate. Well, what was that? Well, that's the British going in and setting up the government infrastructure so that it can be handed off at some point to the Zionists. When are we going to hand that infrastructure off to the Zionists? Well, they're going to have to resist. How much resistance do we need? They're going to have to blow up a hotel with our guys in it. Now, they can have some of their people in it too. That's going to show they're true believers, right? There's also an instance in the creation of Israel story where Nelson Rockefeller got blackmailed by Ben Gurion and Haganah. It wasn't Mossad.
Yeah, it was before it was.
Do you know the story?
I don't know. I know the King David Hotel.
Well, the King David Hotel was the bombing, but they had another one when they had to have the vote for the United Nations to assent to Israel at the vote. It was like November 1947. There's documents and there's an interview, and those are very dry. So the guy who did that research went to a guy who writes a novel, and he says, help me tell this story. So the book reference is called The Witness Tree, and part of it's about the Dulles brothers killing off their sister's boyfriend, and then the other part was about Nelson Rockefeller being blackmailed, and it shows you the secret documents and stuff at the end of the book. But the story goes like this. It's November 1947, and Nelson Rockefeller's sitting in his office, and these two guys from Haganah, which is like the proto-Zionist army intel covert ops organization, they show up to Nelson Rockefeller's office, and they drop a folder on his desk. The folder is full of information on how the Rockefeller family funded the Nazis and committed war crimes through World War II. And Alan Dulles is Nelson's lawyer, and this is going to be made public if they don't get what they want. And so Nelson Rockefeller, as soon as he opens the folder, he closes the folder and sits back because it's not his first time being blackmailed. So basically he sets these demands, and he says, you tell Ben-Gurion he can have, so he says, here's what's going to happen. No one sees these files ever again. The bankers, the real bankers, never see trial. Ben-Gurion can have his country or his blood, meaning you can try the real bankers and prosecute the Rockefellers and the people who funded the Nazis, or you can have your country.
Sure,
but you can't
easy
have
decision.
both, right? You can't have both. And then they go call Ben-Gurion, they come back in an hour, and they cut a deal. Nelson Rockefeller had influence over like 27 votes in Latin America and these other places. I forget what the exact numbers were. So he uses his persuasion to sway those votes to get the favorable side, and then everything kind of moves forward from there. But there's a deep bond between the British and the Zionists before they bring America into the picture. But now we are in the picture, so really it's like an Anglo-American Israeli establishment.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm still not buying the whole, like, they just want fucking resorts and that's it. Like, you know.
Well, there's like
plenty of resorts in
wealth.
Tel Aviv or whatever. Like, it's
There's
not the
offshore. I mean, Gaza.
Well, there's
has a
oil.
bunch of
They have oil, right?
Right.
That
And
makes even more sense.
Okay, so if you follow those lines of research back, it goes back to who was the recent Prime Minister of Britain? I'm trying to remember his name.
Which one? Tony?
The Indian guy.
Oh, fuck, I can't remember his name. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So his whole family, like his wife's family, is all like, we covered it. So if I looked it up in the Clip Genie, we could find the evidence. But I was skeptical. I was like, nah, they're not trying to build a pipeline. They're not trying to do
Rishi
this.
Sunak.
And Rishi Sunak. They had all these various projects, and when you look into it, I was like, no, that is they, them, those who have been doing the thing. So I find a key to my education is being incredulous and not believing things, but being willing to like look it up. Like,
Sure.
That's not right. I'm going to prove them wrong. I get proven wrong in that first step a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but not much further.
Yeah. Once you get that little nugget. All right. Let's take some calls here. Phone lines are open, everybody. 1-888-949-2969. 1 second, please. All right. We're going to go first to Conspiracy Extremist. Conspiracy Extremist. You there, man?
Yeah, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, dude. I'm really enjoying this. Richard, he really gets it.
Big
I had
time.
these questions, and he just literally answered all of them with that last rant. But going back to something you guys were mentioning earlier at the beginning of the show, are you guys aware of Israel's #1 export?
Pharmaceuticals or tech, something maybe?
I mean, I thought it would be like dates or something like that.
Nope.
What is it?
It's diamonds.
Well, they don't create them. You're just saying they're like some sort of go-between
clearinghouse.
It's
I mean,
just their #1
Antwerp
export.
is the bigger. Like I was in Antwerp recently last year, and that's the #1, and it's all it's all like Hasidic Jews who are doing it. But
Well, that's Guy Ritchie, Snatch. Isn't that how the movie begins?
Yeah, exactly.
Benicio del Toro with the
great, fucking amazing
movie.
Yeah. But that is like you walk around downtown Antwerp and like it is that. It really is that. But yeah, so go ahead.
Well, it says that Israel's main exports are cut and uncut diamonds, pearls, and other precious metals. So it's interesting what you guys are talking about, because I also fell for the Jewish trick about diamonds. If I had to buy my wife a diamond. But I find it interesting that their number one export is diamonds, even though you would think, I don't know, in my mind, them being in the Middle East, something to do with oil and things like that, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking olives, not dates.
Yeah, olives.
Olives.
I mean, I'm kind of dubious about this claim, actually, that you're making. I'm going to look this up.
Just Google
That's
it.
good. That's good. That's where education starts right now. See, the extremists.
What is Israel? Oh, there we go. You're correct. Israel's top export is diamonds, which are cut and polished into high-quality stones. How is
so they
Israel
take the raw materials?
Yeah, because it says they're finishing. Because Israel is a world leader in diamond manufacturing, which I assume is
Africa provides a lot of raw materials. So part of it was De Beers and Cecil Rhodes and those guys down there, and they eventually went from like a business, because it was like the South Africa Company, into a colony, into a holding of the empire, which then later fought for freedom with Mandela, right? They had to end the apartheid and all that sort, and now they're having other problems down there these days.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that does check out in terms of just like all the diamond main
and the grading of it.
Yeah, but I'm like I'm a few blocks away from the Diamond District in New York City, and
right on.
It is all Orthodox Jews in Antwerp.
But those, so when you go back to like the creation of Israel, it's not the Orthodox Jews who are calling for the return of Jews to Palestine. It's the British and the proto-Zionists, and the Zionists, for the most part, back in the day, when you look into them, they're pretty like not Orthodox. They're atheist.
Yeah, they're very secular. They're like
it seems like
I would be.
Yeah, it seems that they almost like use the Orthodox Jewish mantle as clearance for their property reorganization project, because it starts in the 1840s. It doesn't start like Balfour Declaration. There's a long history to these things. I did a presentation. It's called The Underground History of Israel-Palestine Conflict, and it's on Rumble. And if you just check out the evidence in there, I'm open to being wrong, but I don't get people updating me on the facts.
Shout out.
It just seems to be like they don't want to, there's a certain set of facts that people don't want to address, and it doesn't lead to one religious group doing any single thing. It's very interesting how an empire and other groups of powerful people that took over secret societies, like, just as an example, since I answered the extremist question, there's a book from 1862 called Rome and Jerusalem, the last nationalist question. So it's written by this guy named Moses Hess out of Germany. He's the father of utopian socialism, which is a big thing today. So Moses Hess says in 1862, we want to restore the Jews to Palestine. We are going to take over the Freemasonic lodges of Europe. And he names all these people who are doing it and who's funding it and all these sort of things. And this is 20 years before Herzl even comes up with the concept of Zionism. So there's all these major milestones that really would give people their choice and agency back, because you're not locked into some story that can't be understood or resolved.
Sure.
And I think it's only because they hide this whole set of facts that I disclose in that presentation that so much conflict can go on. It's almost like censorship creates the field for the warfare.
Yeah, I think a lot of the issue with the Israel-Palestine thing too is because everybody obviously uses like historical context. That's like everybody goes, they pick a date and they go, this is where it starts for us. Each side has a different date, and I think I'm very much in like the maybe realist where I go, it doesn't matter the dates. It's like this is where you are right now, and this is the current situation. So you have to figure it out based off of the current thing. But then everybody wants to go, well, like 100 years ago or well 80 years ago, and you go, you can't do that. You can't pick October 7th.
To let bygones be bygones, or we're gonna have to fight to the death, because those are like the two choices.
And unfortunately, I think it's the latter, because I don't think everybody's so fixated on whatever date that they choose that basically solidifies their argument, and they can't just be like, look, this is the current situation. You have to deal with it as this is just how it is now. And like going back and picking, and everybody goes, this is our day. You go, great, but that doesn't change what's going on right now. Like the Israelis are not
Yeah.
leaving. The Palestinians might be leaving, actually, if Trump gets his way. But, I don't agree that they should. Obviously, that's like crazy. The whole point of them not wanting to leave is, that's what I think everybody always goes, oh, like Jordan and Egypt, they don't want to take them in because they're a problem. And they're like, no, because then Israel wins.
Yeah, and they never get to return.
And they never get to return.
Families out there, they've been wearing those keys around their neck for a long time from, back in 48.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of feeling, and those feelings won't go away. Like it's not like Israel's going to stop and say, look, maybe we were wrong. We're not going to do this anymore. Let's all live in peace. Here's our covenant. If it gets broken, here's what happens. Like that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's never going to happen from the other side. Right. So like, what is the point from which, so you can't, if people can't agree on one thing, they're not going to agree. But if you can just get them to say, how about we all want our children to live up without being terrorized or blown up?
Yeah.
We all agree on that? All right, let's start there. How do we do that? Well, we stop the adults around us from blowing up the children.
Right.
Usually.
And there's so many
things. I
go
can't
ahead.
stop the kid from throwing rocks at the tank. But how about like when that kid grows up and he's older, like you don't like justify that you say that,
Yeah, of course. And that's the thing is, this whole war that's been going on, all it did was make more terrorists. Like you're not have less like quote unquote terrorists. You're like, you have all these people whose families were just blown to smithereens. How do you think they're going to feel about it?
Yeah.
The same any normal person would. Like you'd be like, you'd want some sort of revenge. It's very hard to tell them, yeah, let's just like forget everything and just.
And I don't think revenge is, I understand it's necessary at some points in human history, and that's for each person to choose. But once you start giving fear resonance between your two ears, then you get to anger, then you get to hate, then you get to the dark side, man. It's all Yoda.
Yeah.
So I don't give room to fear or anger or hatred. I see it going on out there, but I'm certainly not letting it participate in my energy system. And I just try to think of, I don't have the right to take actions for other people, but if I can say, or provide some ideas that give them like time to thoughtfully process instead of react, we're winning. That's how winning goes.
Right. Anything else there? Yeah, go
One
ahead.
last thing I was going to ask you, and then I'll hop off. I'm doing a little shopping on Yeezy.com. I got myself and Slav a shirt. For me and I got a shirt for me and Slav. I just want to know if you wanted one too.
I'm good. I don't really have anywhere that I can wear that shirt. By the way, that is so funny that he bought a Super Bowl ad and then he removed 5 million, then removed every product from the site except the swastika t-shirt.
Yeah. I learned about that last night during Grand Theft World. We saw it all happen live. And when I saw that shirt, because I was like, oh, that's actually a smart idea. Like one video to point to one page and he's got one product. What is it? And my co-host was like, no, you got to click the link. and I was on screen. So I was like, okay, I'll click the link. And I was like, holy shit.
I was actually going to put it in the thumbnail for tonight's show. And then I go, I can't. I was like Googling. I'm like, can you put that in a thumbnail? And people are like, probably not wise.
Yeah, I appreciate that because, like, people who want to make something out of nothing can and will prosecute you for stuff you didn't do later in time.
Sure.
It's very Kafka-esque.
I know.
It's less so in the past couple of weeks, Kafka, but like the whole January 6th with them having 5,000 FBI agents on 1,500 peaceful protesters who didn't bring firearms to a alleged coup. Like that's all nonsense, and that nonsense needed to stop.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on Patriot Front?
No.
Hey, Danny, I'm going to hop off.
Okay.
Real quick. Richard, you're brilliant and you're awesome, based beyond belief, and you're doing great work, buddy.
Hey, thank you for the compliment, and you're the same because you got a long attention span, and anything I figured out, you can figure out too.
Yeah.
Go freedom.
Hell yeah.
Later, buddy.
Have a good night, guys.
Conspiracy extremists, everybody. Yeah, anyways, because the whole, like, they have the whole the Patriot Front thing where it's the dude in the khakis who always like march.
like when they have the feds that go do the things.
Yeah, essentially the feds.
Up.
Yeah. So I'm curious because I might just be a total rube, but I've been saying for a while, because I go into their Telegram and I'm like, I don't think they're feds actually, but then everybody's like they're feds. And then, but if Kash Patel comes in, which it looks like it's pretty much a guarantee at this point, if they disappear, then I'm like, yeah, they were for sure feds. Like if we just never see them again. If
they disappear because they didn't get their USAID paycheck,
sure,
we'll know.
Sure.
Right? Or if they didn't get their 10,000 subscriptions from the Department of Forestry or whatever they were doing. Do you ever see that movie? Not the movie, but the series Landman.
I haven't seen it. I heard it's good though.
All right. So there's a point in there with Billy Bob Thornton, and he's basically trying to negotiate for oil rights. That's his job. And these other people can't give it to him, or they messed up, or whatever. He's like, look, I can give you $100,000 a month for solar, this and that. And they're like, we don't have solar. He's like, God damn it, neither do I. I'm in oil. He's like, but I can write you a check for $100,000 a month for solar. Do you hear what I'm saying? You know,
Yeah.
He's basically saying, like, this is how I pay you. I can't take liability. I can't say we hurt the people on the thing, but I can pay you this every month for this other thing. Is that okay? And the lawyers are like, yes, let's do that. So that's the same thing. U.S. like George Soros can't give money to Comet Ping Pong Pizza and David Brock and Alephantis directly. But
No.
he can have an organization that sends it to another organization that sends it to 21st Century American Bridge Foundation that then sends it to Comet Ping Pong for $10,000, right?
Right.
So like that's how the things work. Those billionaires create fronts, those fronts trickle to other fronts, and then their little agendas work out, and that's how they topple countries around the world.
Yeah, I didn't know. Martin Shkreli actually told me this. I didn't know this, but the whole thing where when like some politician writes an autobiography and then it goes #1 bestseller, and it's essentially like some investment bank is just buying like 100,000 copies, puts it in a fucking, stores it in a warehouse, and then that's how they just funnel the money to these politicians, is they just buy their book to give away.
Yes. Yeah, that's how Hillary Clinton can have like an $8 million book deal. And
yeah,
you know, HSBC, Hong Kong Shanghai Bank Corporation, like one of the opium narco trafficking banks of the British Empire, they gave the Clintons $100 million in 2016. That was after they got caught for money laundering and narco terrorism by the U.S. government. Government said, you know what, you did $30 billion in crime. You have to pay us $3 billion. You have to give us 10%. So HSBC cuts a check for $3 billion as the penalty for stealing 30, right? That's a great deal.
Yeah.
It's a great deal. Do business all day.
Yeah,
right?
no shit.
So they cut this check, and then the check disappears in our government, and no one knows where it went. I interviewed the whistleblower from HSBC. He's like, dude, this crazy stuff's going on. I'm like, you have no idea. Like, so when we get together and we compare crazy notes, like, do you know who Bill Binney is from the NSA?
No.
He's a whistleblower from 2002, like way before Snowden. This guy risked his career and was like, these people are stealing everything from you. They're trying to keep you as slaves. So he blew the whistle, and he's in a wheelchair because he lost his legs due to a MRSA infection in a hospital. Sad case. So he's in the shower. So he's got no legs. He's handicapped, you know, basically. He's in the shower. The FBI come in and raid him because it's the most intimidating thing you can do to this guy. But he's a super brilliant genius, and he's not intimidated by anybody. So he just like laughs at them. And in the interview I did with him, I asked him first off, like, what about encryption? He's like, there's no encryption. He's like, you know, Project Bull Run takes away everyone's encryption. So I went through and just asked him all these questions where people think they have privacy and security. He's like, no, we've been violating that for a long time. Then I took him to dinner afterwards, and we were talking about the British intelligence establishment that kind of controls ours. And he didn't.
Is that still the case to this day?
Yeah, because they merged it. It's all merged now. So it's not like, you know.
It seems like the British, just in general, politically, have been kind of defanged, but.
Well, they get to sit in the background while we steer the car. We're like the property managers of the empire. We use our military. But it's like the British did that in the Netherlands. The Dutch sat in the background. It used to be the Dutch East India Company, then the British East India Company. So now the British are sitting in the background while they're running the American East India Company, basically. And it's through the security relationships that we got entangled and can't really get unentangled. But they got us into World War II because they were working with the Nazis and the Japanese, and they ran the questionnaire for Pearl Harbor in August of 1941. And the guy who was running the MI6 in his memoirs are good to read, by the way.
Yeah.
He says, we would have told the Americans that we knew ahead of time, but we had just started getting back in bed with them. Right? We had a relationship that was just budding. So we didn't want to tell them we had this huge espionage network that was planning the whole thing to get them into the war. But he admits it. He doesn't admit it till the 70s when he wrote his memoir. But he's like, look, we knew about it. We ran it. We used Rhodes Scholars and these other people in the double cross network. And, you know, that's how the world still kind of runs.
Interesting.
People who know more than the people who are running our country for a long time.
Yeah.
That's how it's run.
All right, let's take a call here.
Yeah.
We got a few more here. We're gonna go to Jared. We're gonna keep him on a tight leash though. He's been on one the past couple weeks. Jared, are you there?
How you doing, good sir? Another
How's
beautiful
it going,
day, huh?
man? Yeah. How are you?
I'm doing well. So what kind of time leash I got? What do I got a time leash? What is this?
It's really a time leash on me, Jared, because I got long answers. What's your short question?
Yeah. I don't think we're getting a short question from Jared, but go ahead.
Well, the idea of discussing and calling was about Hamas being created by Israel.
Yeah.
So, it's really something that goes back. Sorry, I got some. Let me get to the right bit of data. I beg your pardon. So Hamas was created by Israel. It's not very complicated. Benjamin Netanyahu in 2019. Anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state has to support bolstering Hamas and transferring money to Hamas. Okay, 2019.
Yes.
IDF Major General Gershon Hakion, whatever his name is. In the visible dimension, Hamas is an enemy. In the hidden dimension, it's an ally. 2019. Charles Freeman, U.S. diplomat and ambassador. Israel started Hamas. It was a project of Shin Bet. Okay, so the website I'm sourcing this from is Swiss Policy Research.
No, they're tight.
swprs.org. It's just to source it. I want to make sure that people are understanding where this is coming from. Founded in 2016, it's an independent, nonpartisan, nonprofit research group investigating geopolitical propaganda. It's composed of independent academics, receives no external funding from other than reader donations. Richard's doing great things. I was a little skeptical when he came on, but he started dropping some good stuff.
You have a
and
question?
I appreciate him. I just wanted to know what his thoughts were and his knowledge on the creation of Hamas and Israel's influence. I think I could drop some stuff if he.
No, I got
you.
No, I think this is probably. I would guess this is kind of your wheelhouse.
Well, it's not my wheelhouse, but I've done more research than a lot of people, so I'm happy to share what I've seen. So to answer your question directly, Hamas starts, I think, in 1987, founded by some doctor. So it's a legitimate Islamic movement that started, but wasn't anything like it is today, let's say. Along the way, in search of how do we push off a two-state solution and keep it a one-state Israel solution, Israel did find it beneficial to support Hamas in a variety of ways, because if they have this kind of extremist government, it's really easy for Israel to justify its state policy. And this goes back, to the early 2000s with this type of activity of direct support, direct admission of the support of Hamas, as a matter of fact, right? Saying, first off, they had to get rid of Yasser Arafat. He was assassinated. Yasser Arafat was assassinated. And you should check the 2013 autopsy.
Rabin was assassinated.
No, that was 96.
Yasser Arafat was assassinated? I thought he died of cancer.
No, well, that's the official story.
Gotcha.
So his wife did an autopsy, and there was other findings. I think it was like polonium or something that they. So anyway,
okay,
it's an interesting case. Rabin is killed in 96. He got warned by Michael Drazen in the Bible Code, though. So shame on that. But here's my point. The use of Islamic proxy armies has gone on for a long time, and they learned that technique from the British, because the British had an MI6 agent in the 1920s named St. John Philby, or St. John Philby as he went. He became involved with he went to Saudi Arabia. He picked Ibn Saud as a tribal leader to say, we're going to make a country and make you a king. And he took an Arab wife. He took on native dress. He was still getting.
He was a foreign agent. He was from the British government.
He was still getting MI6 pay stubs well after MI6 said he didn't work for them. So then in 1928 they created the Muslim Brotherhood,
established the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Let Richard talk though.
And then the next part after they did that is St. John Philby's network of Arabs gets handed to his son, Kim Philby, from the Cambridge Five, communist spy ring scandal. Before that, before Kim Philby gets outed, he sold that Arab proxy army network to Alan Dulles at CIA, which is where we get the Mujahideen from for July 4th, 1979, with Zabinyi Brzezinski, all the way up through Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, all the way up through ISIS and ISIL, which never attacks Israel.
Yep.
You do a lot of good research, Jared. You'd enjoy Grand Theft World podcast.
Yeah. Check it out, Jared.
I think I would. And I want to say you're doing great things, man.
Hey, thank you, man.
Good things.
I appreciate
Okay,
it.
I gotta let you go, Jared, just because I got a few more callers. But thank you for the call. That was a solid one, Jared. That was a good one.
Thank you, sir. Till the next time, sir.
Later, Jared.
Thank you,
Jared. Everybody. All right, let's take another call here. Thank you again for coming on. This is we're gonna have to do round two of this, man.
Yeah, the fact that you do live calls and stuff like that, I can appreciate you like juggling the technicality to give the audience that benefit. And even though it always makes me nervous, like just doing any of this stuff,
it's fucking it's a fucking nightmare.
When I hear people get it, it makes it all worth it, man. Yeah, I'm like, oh, now the truth's out there. Now it's getting out there.
Carl, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with? Oh, I know who I'm speaking with. Carl. Sorry. Go ahead, Carl. I'm fried. My brain's fried.
Yo.
What's up?
How you doing, Carl?
How's it going, fellas? Good. Richard, love everything you're doing. You're an absolute legend, and I don't think there's anyone doing work as important as yours, to be completely honest. And I appreciate everything that you do over there.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I bumped into some of your work when you were talking to Jan Irvin in 2013. I found that a few years back.
Yeah. What'd you find?
And,
do you remember the topic?
It was Century Club, Rhodes Scholar stuff, but it was, you know how Jan Irvin does it. So
yeah.
It was pretty in depth. It was pretty big. He had the brain database going. There was like drones outside of his house or some shit. Maybe not drones, but there was like I think you guys were joking, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were at that time, because like I know academia has been pretty rough on those types of guys. So I'm glad that you still have your channel and everything. But I just want to make it quick and ask, what do you think about the Huxleys' influence in 2025 today? Do you think that most of their plans with MK Ultra have made a huge dent, or no? If you had to,
I think that's a great question. The Huxleys, you trace them back to like the 1800s. So Thomas H. Huxley worked as Darwin's bulldog, and there's a whole lineage that goes like T.H. Huxley trained H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells mentored Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley mentored George Orwell. So there's a whole lineage of that passing. But basically they're into like eugenics and population control and things that could make the empire a dominant empire over the world. And by the time you get to the 1950s with like Aldous Huxley and Julian Huxley, Julian was in charge of the United Nations education. It was UNESCO. Right, he was in charge of the Homosexual Reform Law Society, and Aldous was writing books like, Brave New World and Island was his last book in 1963. Did you know that Aldous Huxley, C.S. Lewis, and JFK all died on the same day?
No, really?
I'm not saying there's a connection. Two of them were in a secret society, and one of them was a dead American president.
I found that out recently.
Yeah, so if you're in a secret society and you voted no on the JFK assassination, you might have also like had to check out that day.
Sure.
I don't know. That would be pure speculation and rumor. That's as close as I would get to like not facts, but
yeah,
it's an interesting piece of history because they worship Mithras. The British, like the whole culture over there is Mithras worship from Rome. And like the Bank of England is built on a Mithraic shrine. And at Oxford and Cambridge, they have the boys' choir sing to the rising sun. So there's like a lot of sun worship, kind of old time religion stuff that they get into. And when JFK did that secret society speech, he said secret societies with secret oaths. He's not talking about communism. Communism has no oath, right? He was talking about something that he encountered that, I don't know, he got killed probably over.
Sure.
Sad.
Wild. Anything else there, Carl?
Like that video had like pretty much all of that, and that does like kind of brings to light a lot of stuff. But what do you think about like in terms of the Brave New World thing? Like, do you think in like 50 years down the line, do you think that that Gen Z and Gen Alpha will understand Brave New World in 1984 as more of a revelation of the method style instruction manual type of situation rather than literature and things such as like Catcher in the Rye as well, and just kind of the things that were unveiled in that video that I was speaking of with you and Jan Irv and other media like that? Do you think that that'll be more mainstream?
I hope that it'll be mainstream. Yeah, I hope it'll be mainstream. Like people look at it in a museum and say that's how it used to be, and that type of dystopia used to be a real option until blank happened, where people discovered how to get along with each other. The eugenics that they were expressing, the population control, that's all the Stargate Panopticon, mRNA, all the Larry Ellison stuff. So yes, it's definitely still going on today. There are people who want you in a total surveillance panopticon, and they want you to license your immune system like it's Microsoft Windows or something. That's basically what they want.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right, I gotta let you go there, Carl. But thanks for calling in, man.
Thanks,
Good questions.
All right, how you going, fellas? Appreciate it.
Carl, everybody. All right, let's take a few more calls, and we're gonna wrap this up. We have Tom. Tom, are you there?
Hello, I am here.
How's it going? You're on with Richard.
So
Go ahead.
I'm on Rumble, which I never pop on Rumble, but I'm going there a little bit more now because you can't get anything on YouTube anymore.
I mean, we got 2,400 people watching live on Rumble right now.
Yay, Rumble! I'm on Rumble.
And
Come on
the
over.
first thing I see is a picture of Richard Grove, who I've known for maybe 16 years. I haven't talked to him at all in probably about 14 years.
Okay.
But how could I not call up?
Yeah. So what's your question for Richard?
All right. It's off topic a little bit from, I think, what the general conversation is, but it's something that's kind of like I've been trying to get an answer for. Okay. When you look at Tesla, all right, the company, they are not a very successful car company. I mean, they're not in the top 10 of car sales. I think Toyota's number one. Somewhere around there is Volkswagen, Hyundai, GM, Stellantis, a few others, right? And I know they have a $1.4 trillion market cap, okay?
Yeah,
So
which is, I believe, almost doubled since Trump got elected, or somewhere around that.
I think it was less. It was under a trillion. What the heck? I'm trying to think of the number actually was.
Oh, it's been down a bit. I mean, there's all these countries that are boycotting it right now. They're talking about Canada's talking about 100% tariff on Teslas.
Well, I mean, my point is Tesla's not really selling a whole lot of cars. They've been in business since 2017.
There's a lot of them on the road. I know that's anecdotal, but there does.
He started by selling the most expensive version first.
Yeah,
and then as he makes the economies of scale, right? So that's kind of a law in entrepreneurism. It's like you want to help the masses, but in order to help them, you have to go sell a high value product to some people with money first, and then you can go help the masses buy an affordable car,
right?
Like produce one for them. So there's just like
I mean, I want to say when I take an Uber in New York City, every third Uber is a Tesla here. They're around.
So much better than when I lived in New York City, bro, because every taxi was Skunk City, man.
Yeah. The Teslas are Skunk City. It's just, it's a nicer Skunk City, but
I'll put the
Go ahead.
in a different context.
Sure.
Everybody has Facebook or Instagram, so we all know why Mark Zuckerberg is one of the richest guys in the world.
Yeah,
okay?
Total information awareness at DARPA.
Well, my point is that people are on there because he has billions of customers. Okay. We all know by driving 2 miles down the street that and seeing your Amazon truck that we know why is Bezos still the CEO, but we know why Amazon is worth all the billions it's worth, right?
Correct.
And Bezos is like one of the best in the world.
Government contracts for server farms. Yes. Yeah.
Everybody's got Microsoft software in their computers. We know why Bill Gates is. Okay. But everybody's not driving a damn Tesla, A. And B, all you got to do is go on your phone and say, give me the top 10 in car sales, and you won't see it. Okay? So how did all that money get into Tesla? Why would people invest in it?
I mean, I can tell you right now, just pulled it up. Tesla's trading at a PE ratio of 172, which is incredibly high. Meta's at 30. Essentially, I mean, the explanation is that people expect Tesla to be worth in the future such a huge amount of money based off of essentially Elon Musk is really good at promising all this crazy shit that he might never deliver on, but he makes you think it might be possible.
And he catches rockets with.
Because he catches rockets. I mean, SpaceX is probably, I wouldn't be surprised if SpaceX eventually winds up with a valuation close to Tesla. But again, SpaceX will essentially connect the world with internet. So,
Well, we're really on different points of view on this, because I think that the guy was pumped up with money coming out of God knows where, just like what BlackRock has 12 trillion, right?
Absolutely. I mean, he became the richest man during the pandemic.
Yeah. And again, he's the right hand. He's like the right hand man of the president right now.
And it's also the government Starlink contracts all over the place in the background. Just like people think Amazon is delivering you packages, but it's web services for the CIA. Amazon Web Services is
people don't know that. It's they make way more of their money off of web services than they make profit than they do off of actual delivery. A lot of the shit that you buy, they lose money on.
Talking about Tesla? Who are we talking about?
We're talking about Amazon here.
Tesla? Right. I guess what I'm saying is, I know everybody could see on a daily basis, why these companies like Amazon and Facebook and Microsoft are among the richest guys in the world, the richest companies in the world, and so on. But everybody doesn't have a Tesla. So many more people have Toyotas. So many more people have Nissans and GMs. My point is, it's not selling it. I'm going to toss it out there that there's people in this world with tons and tons of money that nobody knows about. Okay, and maybe they're making this guy the richest guy in the world to get him some clout because they're the ones that are telling him what to do.
Yeah, I mean, it would be very hard to prop up a stock like Tesla artificially. Even if you were a BlackRock, it would still be, because again, so many people are going to come out if they believe that it's improperly valued, and they do. They'll short the shit out of it. And Richard,
I mean, it's a legit question though.
If they think it's going to go down,
right?
My question is, if people are, in other words, it's not like they have a corner on the market on the automobile industry. I mean, people are not selling their
EVs. I mean, there was a case at one point where they're they're the best EV. That's arguably not even the case anymore. So.
No, and then I think they lost money. Not they lost money, but they made less money in 2024 than they made in 2023.
Yeah.
Okay.
Richard, thoughts on this?
Well, it's like if we sat here and scrutinized Oracle stock, right? Or you could look at these things at the origin and evolution. Like Zuckerberg got Facebook from total information awareness. Bezos was approached by Amazon back in the day, and they stabbed a knife into the table while they're negotiating with him. He's a soft dude who got pushed around by some gangsters. That's why he is their front man, right? Zuckerberg's a soft front man too, right? If you go back to Oracle, which is doing this project Stargate with Trump and $500 billion and AI, Larry Ellison is only interested in panopticon surveillance of everybody because he's kind of a control freak. He owns the island of Lanai. He has his own Hawaiian island, right? The sixth biggest island. He owns that, right? Larry Ellison got handed a project. DOD created the relational database as a project that they had. It got handed over to Oracle, which became a publicly traded front-facing company. And then the CIA became the biggest customer of Oracle. And that's where Larry Ellison comes from. So, and you can read the book, The Difference Between God and Larry Ellison. It'll tell you a soft version of that story. But I used to work for a guy because 20 years ago, I was the director of sales for an artificial intelligence company that had real algorithms that could learn. And the guy who founded that company was called Earl Cox, and Earl Cox worked on the team for the DOD to develop the relational database that got handed off to Ellison. So he told me and my wife that story in first person. So I'm going to take that as pretty credible.
Sure.
That people who were there said that's how it went down.
You're answering my question.
Sure.
Because what you're kind of inferring is these other guys had some big forces behind them that made them what they are. And
Trump
it's really kind of, Yeah. Oh, of course.
I mean, the Elon Musk thing, no question. Like Tesla, had they not had these crazy EV credits, could have never been successful at all. Like they needed these massive, like governments everywhere to essentially say, "Hey, we'll give you 10 grand off your car if you buy one."
Yeah, but to your point, like it's the same thing that they did with Trump because, back in the early 90s, Trump got forced into bankruptcy. And there's a Bloomberg article that you have to go to the Wayback Machine to find it. It's called Donald's Trump Card, and it's from March of 90 or 91. And on page 2 of that, it says, even though he was going bankrupt and he was losing his buildings and casinos, the party that was bailing him out decided to leave his name on the buildings because it would be better for business, right? That his name still had marketing panache. And the guy who did that was a guy called Wilbur Ross. He worked for Rothschild Inc. And when Trump became president, he paid them back by making Wilbur Ross their first commerce secretary of his administration.
Okay. All right. This is what I'm talking about. It's all kind of intertwined, I think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at these high levels, it's all... Everybody's
and
all
he paid
connected.
back his debt, so he probably is not in debt to them. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's a thing that happened.
Yeah.
And
I'm just thinking that it's probably somebody's puppet. And I'm talking about
I mean, yeah. That's probably safe to say he's beholden to someone.
Asperger's and endless energy to be promoting your projects while you're sitting on your 200-foot yacht in the bay of like wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Gulf
awesome.
of America, which officially became
Gulf of America
yesterday. Or whatever, yeah, if you look on Google now.
A little bit of follow-up since that was such a good answer, okay?
For sure.
Okay, yeah, quickly though, I got to let you go.
Where did BlackRock get their $12 trillion and where did Vanguard get their 9 or whatever they got?
I do a presentation called The Underground History of America. And in there, you can see that during the narco-terrorism days of like Skull and Bones and the East India Company, it's all the opium trade, right? So America has a bunch of this wealth. The British have a bunch of this wealth. They extracted it from the Mughal Empire in the 1800s. So you can see the gross national products of these countries going up and down, and we just jack it all. That had been floating around someplace. There was a claim by a book called Dope Inc. that Kissinger Associates managed that entire portfolio. Then BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street kind of come out of nowhere, and they just rise to the top, and they're these behemoths that are buying everyone's houses. And going back to that Al Pacino movie, The Insider, it was BlackRock that was involved with telling CBS that they couldn't let the whistleblower on TV. And they said, but what he's saying is true. And BlackRock said, that's tortious interference. The fact that he's making it true does even more damage to our client. And that was the whole thing with Brown and Williamson's tobacco lawsuit with Ron Motley.
What was that reference you said to check out?
The movie?
I think when you said check out my something or other, when you started talking about
your presentation.
Yeah, presentation. If you go to grandtheftworld.com, there's a banner at the top that changes, and it's got all the various different presentations. It's called The Underground History of America. And then the other one I did earlier was The Underground History of Israel-Palestine.
Cool. All right, Tom, I got to let you go, man. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, good questions. All right, let's take a rapid fire, a couple more questions, and then we're going to wrap this up. Thank you again, Richard, for coming on. This has been quite really illuminating. Yeah. Slav.
Hello. Hey.
What's up,
going
man?
on?
How you doing?
And as the previous caller, conspiracy extremist, asked, I'm accepting that shirt. But what I want to do is I want to pass it on. So I've been suggesting, the first one today was like no need for apology. Like I want to buy, like if I'm gonna buy one of those easy shirts, I want to gift it to somebody.
I mean, I can't imagine a lot of people are buying these shirts.
Dude, I can't wait for him to make a complimentary matching hat. Like a little neat baseball
I mean, we've all seen that Die Hard. Like, where the fuck are you going to wear this shit? Like, even if you believe that and you want to wear that, where are you going to wear it?
Look, there's much more classier symbology for the Third Reich. I mean, I like their Reichsadlers, especially for the Luftwaffe.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if you know any of these terms, Danny. So I was calling in because
yeah, quickly though, we got to wrap this up.
It's predicated on the Samson option, which I'm sure Richard Grove is familiar with.
For sure.
So, but my whole question was, what was the so you're familiar how in 2002, that guy from Philadelphia, his name is Benjamin. He's like this leader of this invented country
Netanyahu?
that was like created for a refuge. Yeah.
Bibi.
So in 2002, he went before a congressional committee, and he implored onto them that they need to, he didn't say invade. He used the right words. He's like, you guys need to get militarily involved in Iraq because of, he alluded like, oh, we might have some information. He has possessions of these, weapons of mass destruction. He does this, and all of this goes through, and it has been force-fed through our heads through the television. And we've seen U.S. troops who made care packages for them when we were in elementary and middle school. And we saw all these different coalition forces from Europe, like Poland, England, Czech Republic, Australia, yada, yada, all these NATO forces. Was there ever a justification given by Tel Aviv or Likud as to why there were never any active IDF deployed alongside Americans? And I'm 50-50 on that.
Interesting question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I don't know if there's. I don't have any data on that, but it's an interesting question, and I'm willing to look it up and learn more.
So you never seen? Do you know what I'm talking about? That 2002 thing?
No, I don't.
Okay, yeah. So basically, he did that. Like literally, America. The last thing that pushed America into invading Iraq was.
Like he spoke before Congress or something?
Well, it was right before that he had that conversation on the couch where he's like, we can make the American public do whatever we want. And he had that whole candid conversation.
No, it was actually on C-SPAN. No, he went before like a whole congressional.
Yeah, he went. I've seen that. Yeah, he went before some congressional hearing.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
and the whole hearing is like an hour and a half, but I think it's like 47 minutes in. And the like timestamp. The biggest one is like 47 minutes in, where he says, I asked that you guys get militarily involved, and one of the senators or congressmen, some fucking ball bag fuckface up there, was asking, and what other nations do you think we should involve? And he named all the other countries that were in Westmoreland, 5 countries in 7 years, or 7 countries in 5 years.
Wesley Clark conversation. He's a Rhodes Scholar too, Wesley Clark.
Interesting.
In charge of
Wesley Clark. No, Westmoreland was Vietnam.
Yeah.
Right.
Wesley Clark. So I mean, the way I track it is, it starts like, first off, there's like the neocons, right? American neocons were influenced by the Israeli Likud party, and basically it's an Americanization of their policies. This comes into America like in the 90s, really. And then by the time you get to 98, Council on Foreign Relations has picked up that agenda for them, and they have 2 specific articles in November of 1998, Foreign Affairs. One is Osama bin Laden, public enemy number 1, something like that. And the other one is catastrophic terrorism, and they say we need a new Pearl Harbor, and all the stuff they said in the PNAC document, but they said it 2 years earlier in a document by Ashton Carter, who became Secretary of Defense, John Deutsch from the CIA, who was a drug smuggling dude, and Philip Zelikow, who later wrote the 9/11 Commission report. So Zelikow writes the article that says we need a new Pearl Harbor, World Trade Center, all these things in this article. They come along and do the thing, and then Zelikow, who has a degree in creating public myths, comes in and says, I'll be in charge of the investigation. So it's like, for people who are literate and conscious, these things don't make a lot of sense, and I don't know how people believe them, except they don't know these things about these people and these things, so they believe the result.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because the reason I brought up the Samson option is, everyone that you, both, Danny, and everyone listening knows what it is by now, because I've been harping on it forever. But it's just like this whole thing of, at what point, like this whole myth of greatest ally, quote unquote, is like a house of cards for me, but that cards are USS Liberty. They don't send any of their troops for the wars they demand.
Yeah.
Because I mean, look, I'm a Russian, so you're familiar with Solzhenitsyn? Alexander
Dude, I have
and
3
his book.
volumes of the Gulag Archipelago here, and I'm wearing a USS Liberty hat. So I'm on your page.
Do you have 200 Years Together? Do you have that book? Or have
No,
you
but
ever
I know
read it?
Pete Quinones just was reading over it, and he's a good buddy of mine. And
Yeah. Hey, if you find it, you got to find early versions and find the ones that are printed and published by Gentiles, not Jews.
It's a different
Because
version?
My whole thing, I found one in college when the internet was still kind of cool, and it was just all like photo. Like I literally had to print out like stacks and stacks of pages, and I look like a psycho walking out of the library.
I bet.
But,
just a quick side fact on that conversation. Do you know who brought Mein Kampf into the English language?
No.
Jews?
No. I don't know what the answer is in that connotation, but it's Arthur Balfour's niece. So the guy who writes the Balfour
Jew.
Declaration, Balfour's niece and her husband, Dugdale, Edgar Dugdale, they're like, this guy's message is so important, we have to bring it into English, and they publish him. Right. So they kind of platform Hitler. The people who did the Balfour Declaration also platform. So I just thought that was interesting. I've never read his book. I did do a text search of the index to look for Rothschilds. He has no mention of the banking family, to be specific. So if he makes a bunch of generalities, I mean, I don't even know.
Yeah. This all falls into the whole conspiracy of that, like, Hitler was just a plan by the Rothschilds, because it was a Zionist lobbies who told Churchill to turn away the boats of Jews trying to escape Germany, because they were simply asked to leave. And then Winston told, FDR to turn them away. And FDR told all of the rest of the Western Hemisphere to turn away those U-boats. And, I mean, those people ended up in camps. I mean, this whole thing, it all comes down to with this invention of Israel is one of two things. One, today, anti-Semitism is a fake thing because that nation was invented as a refuge. So if anybody is experiencing or bitching about experiencing anti-Semitism, there was a whole nation invented off the blood of 100 million people.
Yeah, the problem is that Jews don't like Israelis. That's the funny part.
And 2 points real quick.
Yeah, I gotta let Slav. I gotta let you go because we gotta wrap this up.
The second part is, what is it? Ever since the Jews got kicked out from Russia in 1792 by Katerina II, I think that was their last straw, and they made sure they could do everything to make as many wars possible, to kill off as many Christian men as possible, and then shove all the barbaric Africans and Arabs into all of these white nations. This is like some sort of petty revenge. All right, you have a good night.
I don't know about that. Thanks, Slav.
Slav, just thank you. And quick
He's
context. Churchill and FDR were cousins. They're like 10th cousins under Henry Howland. So
really,
so during the war, those guys are related to each other. To what extent they discuss that, I mean, it's just a fact. The other part was the OSS and MI6 put out a fake report on Hitler back in the day. It was called it's the Langer report by Walter Langer, and it's called like a psychological study of Adolf Hitler. And in there, they said that that his mom worked for a Rothschild in Austria and got impregnated by him. So it was like the whole Schicklgruber thing. So they did it to embarrass Adolf in front of his troops because they kind of like wrote it as psychological warfare to leak back into Germany. So it's not accurate. He's not actually related to the Rothschilds, but there is a claim by OSS. So there is a claim, and this conspiracy starts at OSS, not people on the internet, you know?
Interesting. Fascinating shit. All right. I got to let you go. We got to wrap this up. But thank you so much for coming on. I know you do like 12-hour fucking streams. You're probably like, we're in the first inning of this thing.
I worked all night last night. Yeah. So I was just glad to be awake.
I know you do these crazy-ass streams. I don't know where you get the energy for it.
It keeps me focused during the week. I don't have to think about all this stuff. I just do one stream on Sunday night, cover the news for the week, and then I can focus on helping people outgrow their status quo.
Solid. Where's the best place for people to find you?
You can find my podcast at grandtheftworld.com, and the training course that we offer is getautonomy.info.
Fantastic. Check that out. I'll put that all in the Links below so people can catch you. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for coming on, Richard Grove.
Danny, thank you.
You
for
were the
going through
man.
Complexity
And
of having a show and hosting.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do this again for sure. We're gonna have a part
Rock
2.
on, man.
All right,
All right.
take care.
Peace out.
All right, Richard Grove, everybody. All right, I'm gonna quickly just read some super chats, and because I didn't get a chance to because of the technical issues, we're gonna give away a 6-month Patreon.com low value mail subscription to one of you, where one of you can win $500. And then we're going to wrap this up. Brookings Brown says, take super chat questions just as serious as calls, Danny. You'd make more money. Let us hang up for $5 as well. Can't do it for hang-ups on this show. And honestly, I normally read them before the break, but because I had the technical issues. But it's honestly, it's hard to read the super chats in the middle just because, one, I'm juggling a million things right now with the show. And sometimes I feel like it derails them, so I got to pick a spot. But I do understand what you're saying. Reagan Foster says, zoom in another 200%. Let us see your face. Dylan Farnham says, forget hang up. How much for you to block this guy? You guys didn't like Trent, did you? Sean C says, donated 5 CAD, Canadian dollars. That's like $1. I think it's like less than 4. Dylan Farnham says, Trent was picked last in dodgeball. And Gabriel says, Trent's dad is disappointed. $20. Thanks, Gabriel. And Brookings Brown says, Danny, this guy is a fraud. Trent likes the company of an older man. Well, we might hear back from Trent at one point. But for now, let's pick a winner. And I got to piss so bad, as always. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining the show. Thank you very much, everybody, on Rumble. Oh, Conspiracy Extremist. Last moment to enter the thingy. Conspiracy Extremist says, hi, Slav. All right, we'll shuffle it up, and let's see who the winner is. And your winner of a 6-month Patreon.com low value mail membership is Reagan, everybody. Shout out to Reagan. You have won. Please contact me, Reagan. If you're already a Patreon member, just hit me up. I'll extend you 6 months. It works that easy. And if you want to sign up and support everything I do, patreon.com/lowvaluemail, MAIL. $5. You get all sorts of stuff. Plus, you can win money from this J word. Shout out to everyone on YouTube. Shout out to everybody on Rumble. We got 2,970 people watching live right now. And shout out to our guest, Richard Grove. That was an awesome episode. I hope you guys all liked it. Shout out to our producer, Mark, as well, for lining up Richard. Great guest. Great show. Check out the Bathhouse if you like a little more, less serious, more comedy. I'm sure we'll be hearing from Jared tomorrow night, and Slav, and a lot of you, live from the Stand Comedy Club Green Room. That's been the show. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'm going to do this outro properly, not like last week. God damn it, that was pathetic. All right, good night, everybody.
Really a poet, you know it, all my shit heroic. Empathic abilities, yeah, my face be also stoic. Bleep, blow up, nigga, that just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can feel this hit if you up or if you hurt. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet in some Birkin. Number Johnny 5, got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I spit phenomenally. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comically. You know I got a ball out, I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, and they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, now we pulling up fresh on some flight shit. Ha. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, and they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, now I'm pulling up fresh on some flight shit. Ha.